Hey guys, and welcome to Anchor to Truth. Today we have our special guest, Sean Griffin with Kingdom in Context with us here to go through part 2 of our chapters 31 through 40 overview of the book of Jubilees. Sean, how's it going, brother? How you doing?
It's good. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again. These are always fun.
Absolutely. We're always glad to have you, man. Any new updates in your neck of the woods?
Oh, everything all at once. So we're we're still continuing to put out content, live streams, videos. We're getting close to finishing our entire teaching on the Hebrews. Chapter 10 is next, and we're also about to pick back up to episode 42. We're still finishing our contextual study guide. We got a lot of things we've been working on, and still finishing up the artwork and animation for episode 2 of Days of Noah as well. So I'm excited about that. Some really cool imagery and things that we've been learning along the way as we learn how to produce an animated series, which is a huge monumental task. So very excited about that. And we're just blessed to be in this position. God's allowing us to do some fun stuff and try to get his word out there, make it as clear, concise, and contextual as possible.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, we left off last time. We were kind of, I don't know, halfway through, a third of the way through of chapter 34.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess let's just find a good spot, pick it up, and just get right into it. So what you guys got for me?
Well, I'll kind of jump us off. I know in verse 10 and 11, 12, that range, what we see is Joseph's going out to go check on his brothers. So clearly Joseph was at home, still taking care of business at home. And he's like, all right, go see what's going on. And, as he goes to find out what's going on, it says the brothers, they dealt treacherously with him.
Hmm.
And so, it's there was some premeditation going on. There's a little bit of bad blood, seemingly only from one side. Unfortunately, it was the 11 and not, or, the 10 and not the Joseph. He's just like, hey, I'm just coming out doing what I was told to do. And how often is it in our lives when we're just doing what we're told to do? We're met with the adversary. We're met with persecution. We're met with, something not good. But yet Joseph, you could tell, we know the story already through the end. He never says any bad words about him, never fights back, doesn't do anything to, cause himself to sin. But yeah, I just always thought it was interesting. He just comes out, he's just having a normal moment. Hey, what you guys doing? And I'm in the pit.
Yeah, and they sold him to the Ishmaelite merchants.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and they immediately got rid of him.
Yeah,
as quickly as possible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I don't know if that was flipping a quick buck or if they were worried because of where he come from. I don't know. What do you guys think?
That was going to be my question, was how long in the timeline is this from? I mean, because Jacob is the grandson of Abraham, right? So like that means Ishmael, the promise from God to Ishmael is already being fulfilled to where his 12 sons are 12 great princes. And they've gotten flourished to the point here to where, what do we think? How do we think Jacob is here? Like 70? Is it because he was down there from, 17 years. So Jacob, do the math in here. And Jacob should be around 93 here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that means from the date, that means 93 years basically that Ishmael left Abraham's area. No, that's not right. How long, I'm trying to do the math on the fly here. How long is this between, Ishmael being kicked out and fending for himself with his mother and then being turned into a great nation? So over 100 years.
Yeah, for
right? Because
sure.
you got the lifespan of Isaac and then Jacob, 93 years old. So that's a long time to build your clans up.
Mm-hmm.
And produce, especially if you're having multiple kids. 12 times multiples turns large real quick.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's very possible that you could have some Ishmaelite merchants that do not actually recognize Joseph because they're never hanging out with Jacob's boys.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know when Joseph does enter Egypt, and as he's talking with the Ishmaelites, he never gives up his family. He's just like, "What are you? I'm just a slave." No, but aren't you from that one? No, just a regular dude slave. Don't attach me to anybody. So even Joseph was doing a good job, kind of keeping the finger from getting pointed back to his own family, or for them to look bad in anybody's eyes.
Right.
I know we're going to get into this question and this conversation as the story unfolds with Joseph and his brothers. But to your point, Jonathan, I've always wondered if why, because Levi's already been made priest to serve Yahweh at Bethel at this point. So I'm wondering if that's a great responsibility and a great weight that he knows his family is carrying. And yeah, it would seem like I don't want my family's name to be besmirched, you know,
Yeah.
with this whole ordeal. And he probably doesn't want his, like, I'm wondering if he's wanting his brothers to be killed over this, you know?
Yeah, I think it was for a protection for his family, but also, a protection not only against what could be said, but also what could be done. I mean, their family was well-to-do. They were known in the lands, right? So, I mean, good gracious, he could have been held for ransom. He could have. I mean, there's could have been all kind of crazy things happen if he'd have revealed who he was.
Yeah,
So,
that goes to my conversational thoughts on verses 1 through 9, which is all these Amorites that are messing with Jacob in this area. Like in verse 4, I mean, it's like we're reading Lord of the Rings in verse 4. You know, Tafu and Arasa and the king of Saragon and Silio, Gaz. Like you're like, who are these people? We never see them mentioned again. We don't understand who. They're not really explained. It's kind of like the Battle of the Nine Kings in Genesis 14. You know, you're just like, what's going on here? And this just calls them the kings of the Amorites, and they were messing with Jacob and trying to steal his wealth. So yeah, I'm guessing if they realized they could buy one of his children, they'd really mess with Jacob.
Right. Well, and Kyle's made the point recently, like if you're trying to fake a document or you're going to try to, oh, this is a new document that showed up way later in history and it's, has nothing to do with Moses and being written on Mount Sinai. He's like, why would you add on all the dates, the names, the places, locations, times? You're going really far to make it sound like you know what you're talking about for it all to be a lie. And then this book is then used for historical accounts in other people's works that are held like in, the civilian world. The regular people are like, oh yeah, this is the book of history. And some of it was Jubilees was the source document for. So yeah, you wouldn't give it. I think, Sean, to your point, that's why you get all the Lord of the Rings names in there is like, hey, these were real people at real times. Go find some rocks and some pottery. You'll find them somewhere.
Yeah, right. I do wish we had the original language from which this was translated, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Because these Greek transliterations back into English, it gets really weird,
Yeah. Goodliest?
Yeah, it's not the goodliest translation.
We gotta say like this. It's the goodliest.
I was tracking right there with you, Jonathan. Oh, too funny. Too funny.
Sean, I want to ask you this. So what do you think about when we get into verses, it's like 17 through 18, it starts, and we see atonement.
Yeah.
And
that's why I think this book is so powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Give you some backstory to the Day of Atonement.
So in 17 it says, and he mourned for Joseph 1 year and did not cease, for he said, let me go down to the grave mourning for my son. For this reason it is ordained for the children of Israel that they should afflict themselves on the 10th of the 7th month, on the day that the news which made him weep for Joseph came to Jacob his father, that they should make atonement for themselves thereon with a young goat on the 10th of the 7th month, once a year, for their sins, for they had grieved the affliction of their father regarding Joseph his son.
Yeah, so not trying to do, I'm not claiming it's a one-to-one parallel, but when I think about the Day of Atonement and the instructions therein and what's going on with Joseph being thrown in a hole, which means he may not have been bound with rope, but he was definitely bound by the hands of his brothers to be grabbed and thrown in the hole against his will, and then pulled out and sold to the Ishmaelites, whom I'm guessing we don't get the story where they took him, if they immediately sold him to Egyptian traders in the nearest town next by, or if they went to Egypt to sell him, or if they took him back to their region, which would be Arabia, which is the wilderness. So you got this, and since he's not telling on the sins of his brothers intentionally, he's their scapegoat. So you got the scapegoat being released into the wilderness. He's a picture of Christ already, as Joseph. You know what I'm saying? So like there's all these unique little ideas that play into the Day of Atonement instruction for the high priest to take the goat and send him out in the wilderness. Now I know that I know there's multiple symbolism applied to the Azazel goat on the Leviticus 16. I'm just saying it's interesting here that this is the first mention of the Day of Atonement, the 10th day of the 7th month, that Jacob began observing in mourning over Joseph and instructed him and his family to be mindful of their sins on this day. due to this event here. So yeah, there's a ton of symbolism here. Obviously, we're mindful of our sins when we think of Christ. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard a pastor at some point in your life give, 100 different parallels about how Joseph and Christ are, their storylines are synonymous.
Oh yeah.
With symbolism. And so yeah, it's a beautiful story as far as like jumping deep into, all right, well, is God's laws really eternal? Were they already practicing the Day of Atonement before this, and Joseph just decided to make this a memorial on this day for Joseph because it seemed to happen like in the same month of the Day of Atonement? Obviously, we have Dinah and Bilhah also dying in the same month, and so I don't know if Joseph was sold on the 10th day, but the memorialization of his loss is Jacob is doing this on the 10th day.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it definitely went down the direction of like remembering your sin or correcting your ways or dealing with the year prior. And, we don't get any, at least here, and I don't think really anywhere, we don't get that definition of like the tradition where you have to fast, like it's like afflicting your soul or dealing with the sin nature, the sin man. So this is another place where we don't get that tradition, that's kind of added along the way. They didn't fast then, and I don't think that they fasted in the canon either. When it tries to say afflict the soul, I think that's more, dealing with what was going on and what was the sin nature that they were working on.
Yeah.
Not that fasting's wrong, but I don't think that was the commandment.
Right.
Yeah. And I know, Joe, you had something here, but just to jump on what you were saying there, Jonathan, I agree. I mean, I think that afflicting your soul. I mean, I think if you were to do a parallel between this story and the future story, I think then you absolutely can look at that and see that lines up. Yes, you should be reflecting on what you've done. What did you do? So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just think it gives us a better picture too of what that day looks like, because everyone, again, what you were saying, Jonathan, like for many years has been, and look, if anybody wants to fast on that day, hey, fast. If that's part of your time of atonement between you and the Father, then fast, go for it. But I think here we get a clear picture of that this is not a joyful time. This isn't a time where we joyously go to the Father. This is where we literally get one-on-one with our Creator and go and make atonement. I mean, go to Him and say, hey, this is where I'm struggling. This is where I messed up. This is where we have the opportunity before this to go to our brothers and sisters. Hey, if I've done something to offend you, please forgive me. It's that time where everything's made right. And this is like, for me, when we were reading the story of Jacob coming out, leaving Laban, and I feel like Abba made it purposeful that Laban did find them, and that before he left, him and Laban were under better terms. And then you see in Genesis account right after that, what happens? He meets up with Esau. The father, I just see the father's hand in this going, hey, there's some burnt bridges, whether you intended it to be there or not, or there's some grieving going on. Now, again, in the Genesis account, what the funny part is, they come together, they hug it out, they kiss it out, whatever they do. But it's funny because that Jacob still does not trust Esau. Esau's like, hey, brother, come with us. Oh, well, you go up ahead and then I'll be right behind you. And then he's kind of like looking around going, all right, we're going this way. Hey, I said my piece, and, this could go sideways in a second. So we're just me and my crew is going to move the other way. But anyway, that's my 2 shekels on it.
I have always agreed with that statement that, hey, if you want to fast, but it's just not a commanded thing. I actually, and I was even agreed with it just out of habit when you said that, but I'm actually on the other side of the fence now. I don't think that we should. I mean, there's very specific instructions, you're right? There's an atonement. There's a sacrifice made. What do we do with sacrifices? We have covenant meals with those. You can't have a covenant meal and fast. Like, you can't do both.
Well, I would say to that, Kyle, typically on the Day of Atonement, what we would do is if you did fast, you would eat that evening.
Okay.
So then it would all be, you'd still eat. You would just fast for that period of time. That's all. Yeah.
Okay. So intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost 5 pounds during atonement.
Good stuff.
You thought it was the weight of sin. It was just the weight of fat. No, so I wanted to see what you guys thought about verse 20. And I didn't even read this the first time we went through it. And after Joseph perished, the sons of Jacob took unto themselves wives, and then it goes through all the names of everybody's wife. Like it's like the author, the angel telling Moses knows that Joseph didn't perish. Moses knows that Joseph didn't perish. Why is, well, I wonder why it's written that way. It's like the brothers thought he had perished. I mean, but then they saw that he didn't die. They didn't kill him. And they saw, like, I just thought it was an interesting way to like start that conversation. By the way, now that he's gone, we married women. You know, it maybe it's a translation thing, or just want to see what you guys thought about it.
I was going to ask, what's the word being translated? I think that's important.
Well, I was going to see if there's multiple definitions to that word, because I was thinking that in my mind it could also just mean kind of gone away. But let's see.
Unless it's just applying itself to Jacob's mentality.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
All right. So just a general from the Googs, we can get suffer death, typically in a violent, sudden, or untimely way, or it says similar, suffer complete ruin or destruction, or let's see, lose its normal qualities, rot, or decay. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would be interested in the original word too. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we know that's not what happened. So
Right.
it is just a funny, interesting choice of words. And then to match those two stories together, then he died. Now we married women. You know, it's like, oh, that was like your, when you're at your wedding, you're like, hey guys, guess what we just did? We just killed our brother. Now let's go get married.
Yeah. And there's some Canaanites in there. So,
yep.
They done messed up again. And again and again and again. All right, so we got a lot of women folk mentioned in there for the, I guess, the rest of 34. Did y'all have any more hot takes in 34?
Hey Sean, I had a question for you, brother. What do you think about Reuben and Judah marrying Canaanite women?
Just bad decisions that they're not listening to Jacob, and they're not listening to, I'm guessing they're not listening to Rachel and Leah. But yeah, it just seems like more bad decisions that you see come about, more problems as a result of this. So, because clearly you look at this list in verse 20 here in chapter 34, and you see that there's other people, like Levi's wife was from Aram, and of the seed of Terah, as it goes through the effort to mention, like, takes you back through Genesis 11, you know what I mean? To take you, just so you can be assured, if you will. But then obviously Simeon and Judah, they mixed in the Canaanite women, but Issachar, I don't know where Issachar's wife is from. It doesn't say. Zebulun's wife, Dan's wife, Naphtali, it tells you his wife was from Mesopotamia. Is that as bad as a Canaanite? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because remember where Terah lived was in Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
So did it include that information about the seeds of the sons of Terah, of the daughters of Aram? And we're to assume Mesopotamian girls are also from that seed? But also, to my understanding from previously in Jubilees, chapters 8 and 9, or chapters 9 and 10, like you've got the breakdown of this is still within Shem's territory, right?
Right. Yeah.
All this is happening within Shem's territory. So we're assuming that even Mesopotamian people would be a descendants of Shem.
So we got the Eastern boys and the Western girls.
But again, we're told not to marry, not that there's racism involved here. I just want to make this very clear. Even though we're trying to, with the limited information, we're trying to figure out, okay, where are these people from? Like clearly Joseph marries an Egyptian lady, but we're not told that Joseph was in some great sin over this either. He did, like it says in verse 21, Simeon repented and then took another wife from Mesopotamia as his brothers. So it seems to give the pass on Mesopotamian girls, but the Canaanite girls, no. Why? Is it because of where they're from? Is it because of whose daddy there was? No, it's because of their heart, their actions, the clan's intent, either to rebel against God and serve the Baal or to walk with Yahweh. And it seems as if in this time period, the Amorites and the Canaanites, they're in full apostasy.
Right.
But it doesn't say that about the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians.
No, and I think that's where that phrase that we get that gets brought up in here fairly often, the Canaanitish,
Mhm.
that ish gets thrown in there. So it's, they may not be from there, but they do the same stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would assume like in the Mesopotamia, obviously, if he's repenting and then taking a wife from this area, it sounds like, okay, this is an okay thing to do, is what it seems like. But there could be a mixture of Canaanite-ish women in that area as well. I don't know.
Well, and we got to remember too, like it depends on what they bring to the table and what they keep on the table. So if you bring to the table all the nonsense, but then you leave it at the door, then God's like, you're good to go. You're fully grafted in. You've adopted the ways of my people. You now are Israel. You're grafted in. So apparently, whatever it is about the Canaanites and other groups, they're bringing too much to the table, not leaving enough at the door. Where they're bringing in their ways, their practices, whatever it is that they did that distinguish them. They kept that moniker over them versus the Egyptian woman or the whatever. They come in, they're like, hey, I'm one of you. Whatever your God says, I'll do. Wherever we go, I'll go, because I want to be part of that. I want to be fully ingratiated with what you're doing. I'm done with the old stuff. The old man's passed away. Now we have newness of life, right? So I think that's a huge part of like Sean was saying, there's no racism. There's no like, well, this group is holy and this group isn't. It's, hey, you can be holy if you want to be holy, but you can't be holy and bring stuff with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you remember earlier in this chapter, it talked about all the Amorite kings, but listed a bunch of names, which means they were kings over people groups that we don't know exactly where their territories were, where their descendancy was. In the same way, we've got, who is it? Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Gad, Naphtali, and Asher. We don't know where their wives come from. So what's the deal, right? Are they sons of Ishmaelites? Are they daughters of Ishmaelites? Are they daughters of Job's kingdom? Are they daughters of, like, where are these people? Or who's the Mesopotamians? How are they? How are these women acceptable and easily grafted in, abiding by the commandments once they meet their husband, the son of Jacob, to be okay? That Simeon even went and took one from Mesopotamia. Where exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about Chaldea? Or are we talking about just over the Euphrates in general? And it could be any swath up and down that area. So it's just interesting to see, like, and of course, at the same time, we've got the offspring of I'm going blank right now. We got Lot's offspring running around, which Deuteronomy I think it's chapter 3 in Deuteronomy says that they're out battling giants on their own right already, and clearing out Nephilim from their areas. So that leads me to believe, under the pretext of what Yahweh's instruction to clear out the Nephilim was, that they would be replacing that rulership with someone who's obeying Yahweh. That's at least that seems to be the inclination, because the Israelites during the days of the Exodus were told not to go mess with the descendants of Lot, but they had their own territory given to them, their own promise, their own covenant, and they were good. They were not to be trifled with by the Israelites. So, seems to be that's the result of someone that's abiding in Yahweh's ways, at least at the moment. So I'm just saying, like, there's so much more of a world happening in this area, and and the offshoots of the Ishmaelites and Lot's descendants and Aram's descendants, and you're just like, even other sons of Terah, you're like, what's going on here? What was Abraham's brother who died? Haran? Is he the one that died? Haran?
I can't remember.
Either way, did he have children before he died? Did they have children? Are they populating? What's going on here? Does Abraham, in his long lifespan, does he ever make contact with anyone he knew in Mesopotamia ever again? Does anyone ever travel to see him? Does he share the good news of Yahweh with anybody outside of his 50-mile radius or whatever? Like, there's all these questions that we don't get answered, that you just kind of have to, unfortunately, it's speculation at this point, but to me, the indicators of the other nations knowing that there is the God of Israel, or the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that they can repent to and graft into. I don't think that these people fully forgot they all came from Noah. It's something about it. You know what I mean? I don't think that, we're only, 200-300 years past Noah, right? Is Noah still alive? Or is this 400 years past Noah? Because remember, Noah lived 350 years after the flood.
Right.
So I haven't done the math, haven't created a chart.
Yeah, Noah's been gone.
When did Noah die?
Because Shem should have already been passed away also before we even get to Abraham. I don't have the exact numbers, but I remember the charts on it. What I believe to be the more accurate charts is by the time Shem passes on, like, Abraham's after that. So where some believe that Abraham was in the tents of Shem and learning all those different things. Technically, Shem should have already been way gone before Abraham showed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of on that same.
Before Abraham was born, or before he showed up, as in like being called out of Chaldea and serving.
Oh yeah, way before that. Like Shem was already been dead.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we were looking at that one time with the difference between the Masoretic and the Septuagint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you go to the date lines of the Septuagint, Shem was dead and gone way before Abraham showed up.
Okay, so that's even more kids being born out there,
right? Yeah.
Whom you know, who are all these sons of the priests of the Melchizedek in chapter 13 of Jubilees? Where they go? Where are they hanging out? What's
Well,
going
we
on
still
here?
got Keturah and all their descendants as well. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah, the 6 sons of Keturah. Like, what's going on there? So, to me, I just, a lot of questions I have for getting a broader, because my mind looks for context, and I'm looking for like that broader geographical bloodline context of all these people spreading out and having babies, and just I got a lot of questions when I get up there, when I get resurrected. And
yeah, we got to remember. I'll go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking real quick. I was just thinking like the resurrection, get your robes were white, wedding supper of the Lamb, amazing time. Maybe after the first year, everything's kind of settled down a little bit as far as that first transitionary kingdom comes to the earth. You're down with survivors, and you've already had your festivals and feasts, and it's this time of year out within that first year, and you kind of have some free time, just a little bit of free time. I'm running to the libraries and seeing what happens all these times.
Well, this is me. I still think like a child sometimes, but I would love for the Father to have this giant widescreen projection, and literally have us all sit down and go, "Okay, kids, I know you had questions, and here it is," because we got all the time, and literally all the time. Here you go, and literally show us. Wouldn't it be fascinating to see creation? Like to sit down and have the Father just show this big giant screen and go, "Okay, here it is, starting here," and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
that's just me. I thought that'd be pretty cool,
Well, and we read about the heavenly tablets. So I'll take you one level further. You're talking about thinking like a child. Those little blue foam around the tablet, and he's like, "All right, each one here's your heavenly tablet. Now scroll through and read one at a time. Make sure you know what you're talking about."
I think about the no one will have to tell their neighbor know the law or obey the law or whatever, because they will already know it. I mean, I kind of wonder if there'll just be a download, like boom, you have understanding, you have this knowledge, you have this understanding now. And while that's cool, I kind of want to see it too. Like, show me the video. I want to see creation. Take me back then so I can see. I think that'd be cool.
Get all our heavenly bags of popcorn sitting there.
You're like, I don't need to eat, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Sean, when you brought that up about the kingdom stuff, I was thinking that you were going to go down another road. But so let me ask you guys this. Obviously, what we're talking about here is we're talking about all the other stories that we're not getting here, right? We're talking about all the other people who are at least walking in some of the ways most likely, right, of the Father, that we're not hearing anything about. We don't have scriptures written about them, at least not that we know of, right? So it kind of makes me think about kingdom. Now, granted, while we will be grafted into Israel, what about all the others? That have to go through a lot of stuff and have to go through various times that still have an opportunity to make it in. Is that not kind of an example of them as well, of that group? Or what, how would you compare that? How would we compare that to the kingdom time? Like when the kingdom comes back, when the 1,000-year reign is here, when we are there with him, and there's people outside. Who are those? Are those is that the example that we're getting with this, where we don't have a story about them, but we know that there are those that are keeping his ways, at least partially? Like, can y'all see a correlation with that?
The sheep, to my understanding, the sheep and goats judgment will determine that for us. Christ will separate those who have been, as Paul talks about, those without a law They do by nature things of the law till unto themselves, and so they're deemed as sheep because they did acts of the law out of the genuineness of them trying to do what's right, even though they didn't have good discipleship or an acknowledgement of Christ. So he spares them. Is that what you're asking about as far as a correlation, as far as like why they chose wives from these other nations?
Yeah, I guess it's
Technically they had to choose them from other nations because they didn't have them in their own family, right?
That's right.
So,
that's right. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is all these people that are doing a little good here and there that we kind of know they're sticking to at least some of the stuff.
I
We
think
just
Christ,
don't have the stories about them. We don't have the
Right.
information about them. You know what I'm saying? So
I believe, at least I hope that Christ is as merciful as he is his majesty, as his father's majesty, right? As Sirach talks about. And in his judgment, he's as merciful, and he does apply the principle that he taught in Matthew: to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yep.
So to whom little is given, little is expected. And that's where he can judge their hearts, and decide, all right, well, this person, they're not going to have a lot of rewards in the kingdom. They may not have a place of great honor, but with what they had to work with, they did what was right, and he judged them mercifully. I pray that's the way it goes. That's to my understanding about how the principles by which he would judge, not to assume how he would judge for a singular person, but the principles on how he would judge.
right.
Yeah, and Kyle, just to kind of, at least for me, to play out a little scenario is, like right now we're still in this like time of good and plenty, but we know soon there's going to be a famine in the land. And the famine, what does it do? It draws all people together into to a single place. When at the time it was Egypt, that's where Jacob and his whole family went to Egypt. And then it said pretty much the whole world was in famine. It said all the people showed up there for food, showed up there for water, showed up there and they sold their land and all that stuff. So go ahead.
No. I'm hold it to your done.
Okay.
Go ahead, brother. You're cooking already.
So they get all the people together there, and God's saying, I orchestrate all of this. So what it takes is, it takes a little bit of uneasiness, takes a little bit of plague on the world to make you uncomfortable, make you unhappy. The world is not your home. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to be from I'm supposed to be from where the people are. I'm supposed to be with my people, covenant people. So he gathers them all together and then walks them into the promised land. Now they mess up along the way, of course, so that's their own error. But he's like, hey, I got you, and nothing will stop. Nothing can take you out of my hand. So I'll destroy everybody around you, just like when the people will come against the New Jerusalem. None of that's going to stand, and you people will be supernaturally protected because you came together. You're one Israel. And I just see that as like that same kind of picture where, yeah, there's all these far off people, but he's going to gather them all up, and then we get that prophecy. I think it's in somewhere in the New Testament. I don't remember off the top of my head, or Old Testament. And it's he gathers all his people from the east to the west. Everybody's going to come back together. And it's because it's his doing, it's his prompting. So I just see that Egypt kind of taking care of everybody during the famine, and the Joseph character, the Ben Joseph, or however we look at it, same story is going to happen later in a different lens. So that's kind of how I'll play that scenario out of my head. And it's like kingdom all over that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sean, what you got, man?
It's great commentary. Jonathan, it just reminded me of this. I don't know if you can see this in the studio. I don't know if you're willing to put this up, but if we look at the map of Goshen, where the Israelites, the brothers and their families were brought into and given this land by Joseph, it's along the major trade routes. So going forward, it's very common for people to stop along these settlements to find a place to stay for the night. I mean, this is a large swath of land. If they're traveling, down from Memphis, which was one of the capital cities for many, many years, or any of these other places where they come into to get to buy the grain during the famine, but even just afterwards, for the 70, 80, 100 years afterwards, if they're populating all into Goshen, was it along one of the major trade routes where they would have an influence on all the people coming and going as they stayed for the night, saw the hospitality and the love of the Israelites who were flourishing, as Jubilees says, and loving brother and loving one another. And so, like, strategically, I've always wondered, why did he give them this land? I remember in the Exodus, when Yahweh has to tell, or at least the account of Yahweh explaining that he didn't want to take them up along the sea lest they would see war. So they had to go through Sukkot, which is that second trade route by Lake Timsah, which was a more treacherous way to go. But because remember, they had to get to the Red Sea and there's nowhere to cross. So they had to, so it was easier as far as the trade route goes to just go up along the Mediterranean, the south of the Mediterranean Sea. And then you didn't have to, and there was a place to cross easier, if I could put it like that.
Right.
Or there was ports or boats or whatever it was, is all I'm getting at. So instead of taking them the easy route, he took them the harder route and opened the Red Sea for them to cross over on dry land. Because it seems to me the major trade routes were northern Egypt, Alexandria, bottom of the Mediterranean, into the Levant. And so it makes perfect sense why he would put them right there. I've never thought about the placement of the descendants of Israel to put them there. And then as they flourish, they're going to be in towns. Did they have the ability to, before they went into actual slavery, did they have the ability to, to host people who are traveling, which was a custom in Torah? And what does that mean? Like suddenly you're talking about it when you rise up and when you walk about and when you sit down and when you lie down, and you know what I mean? And how much of the world could they have influenced during this time before they went into hard labor and oppression?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all of it.
The
Most
whole
of it,
known
at
world.
least.
Yeah.
Of the known world, right?
Yeah.
Just a crazy thought I just had.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, let me say this real quick while it popped in my brain. It won't last long, I promise. So this would make sense too, Sean, what you're saying, because everyone would have known within that region, that whole big area, everyone who had to travel that would have known who they were. So when Moses goes back to the conversation with the Father, and the Father just wants to wipe them all out, and he says, but don't do that for your name's sake, because all the nations, they know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like surprise, here we are, this big group of people moving through, the wilderness. Everyone already knew who they were. And so if that's the case, then everyone, like you just said, if people are coming through, hey, stay the night, their hospitality, they know who these people are. And all of a sudden Moses saying, hey, they all know who they are. And if you destroy all of them, what are they going to say about you now? Were you not able to? You were able to bring them out, but that's it?
Yeah, it's a great point, because that's Exodus 32 or 34. And we're not to, I mean, that's 40 years before Rahab says, oh, we heard what you guys did to Og and Sihon, and we heard about you guys, what you did to Egypt. So this is only 3 months after what happened with Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it seems to be like just the Amalekites knew that they were fleeing Egypt and tried to attack them. So yeah, it would make a lot of sense if people coming in and out of Egypt for trade knew who's this people group that we run into right when we enter Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
That walking in the joy of the Lord and flourishing, and they're strong and they're able-bodied and they got a smile on their face, and you know what I mean, and they got the love in their heart, and like that's different when you're coming out of the Canaanite zone.
Yeah. It's like a good TV show, the Canaanite.
They're not trying to pick us up and eat us, and like, who are these awesome people? That could make a lot of sense why when we get to Jubilees, was it 47, it talks about the Israelites loved each other and walked in the commandments, and they were flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah
there was no adversary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so not to be a doomer, but it reminds me of the 42 months before Yeshua returns, and the first beast that goes out to make war against the nations and the saints of God to persecute. And it seems, could we look in the scriptures and like the days of Israel, the days of the boys in Goshen, the days of Abraham, the days of the Maccabees, could we look and find a correlation of scripture, like when the people of God start doing it right, here comes the blatant oppression?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're about to create a tidal wave of an impact that can't be undone, because you're actually doing it right and you're building momentum, and you know what I mean? Because I think about Antiochus Epiphanes with the Maccabeans, and I think about it says they were doing things right. They were loving God. The temple was good. The priests were honest and serving well, and people were walking in love with each other. And Antiochus is like, yeah, let's go burn them all. So otherwise, if they can't get them through subterfuge, then that's when the blatant, because subterfuge would mean deception, right? So instead of having to go in with the war machine, you just deceive the people of God not to be good disciples. But when they overcome that deception and finally start doing it right, they have to bring in the war machine. Yeah.
Good connections there.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because as we're kind of like digging through all that stuff, and we're seeing like the Canaanite wives, we're seeing all the nations. Like there's so much in the world going on, like we were talking about. And then when we like sneak into 35, right at the beginning, Rebecca's like, "Hey Jacob, real quick, come talk to me. Let's have a conversation." And I wonder if it's because she remembers Esau going off and marrying the two women that he wasn't supposed to marry, and that grieved her heart. She felt like she was going to die. Like all this stuff. And her and Isaac are having this conversation, and now she's like, "Oh, hey Jacob, come here. What's going on with your family?" But she doesn't come out with the negative. She comes out with the positive. And she knows that Jacob's being righteous and staying righteous. But I think it's a little bit to uplift him and build him up, because Joseph's gone. Kids are getting a little bit unruly, right? They started off with the whole situation with the brother, and then a few of them marrying women outside of the camp. She's like, "We've been here, we've done this. Look what happened to Esau. Hey Jacob, let's come talk." And while they're doing that, she's kind of checking in on him, like, and he's like, "Don't you know there's no perversity in me? Like I didn't do anything wrong. Like, like, and I'm not gonna do anything wrong." So I love that they're having this like kind of mother son conversation just in the midst of all this. But because she knows she's also on the way out, so she's like, "My departing words are gonna be, you, Jacob, got to keep things together. You are, I had the vision, I had the dream, I talked to Abraham, I had the two kids in the belly. One was going to be a great nation, and blah, blah, blah. One's going to lead the other. Make sure everything continues to go the way it's supposed to go."
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up a point on this while we're in this. I mean, I know we've kind of moved past this part of the story, but it gets brought up every time we address that story about, was Rebecca being deceptive? Was all that kind of stuff, right? And I think I'm at a point now where I can plant a flag and say, no, she absolutely was not. Because what were they told? What was she told? You have two nations in your womb, and the younger or the elder will serve the younger. That was before they were born.
You're right, brother. I forgot totally about that.
So
that's rolling around in her heart and mind this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, not only that, but with Rebecca, I think I've said this before. I think maybe one of our last recordings, but one thing I know for me and Jonathan, like Rebecca's like mom of the year, mom of the century, mom of the whatever. And it's like, I think if you're doing a Proverbs 31, for you ladies out there who like to do the Proverbs 31 woman, I think you need to go back to Jubilees and read about Rebecca and plug her into Proverbs 31. Mm-hmm. She's an amazing woman. Yeah, she's not working in any deception. Matter of fact, we see her in the earlier chapters actually moving with the Holy Spirit, speaking through her when she's given the blessing. Yep. And she's just being obedient. And she loves her husband. She loves her boys. I mean, matter of fact, she comes to Jacob here in verse, I think it's verse 8, or no, I'm sorry, verse 9 of 35. And she says, she went to Isaac and said unto him, one petition I make unto thee, make Esau swear he will not injure Jacob, nor pursue him with enmity. For thou knowest Esau's thoughts, and they are perverse from his youth. This is mom. Mom's like, hey, I love my boys, but we know, okay, we both know, and there is no goodness in him. That's sad, though. That's really sad. It has to come from your mom, though, to say that there is no goodness in him, for he desireth after the death to kill him. Mm-hmm. So mom's walking in the Holy Spirit. People who think the Holy Spirit didn't show up to Pentecost, Holy Spirit's always been there. Mm-hmm. And so, again, for you ladies out there and you do your Proverbs 31, I highly suggest getting the book of Jubilees and studying the chapters at least with Rebecca and adding her into that. Because I think you see a woman who walks with grace, humility, love, patience. Even though she's on the way out the door, she's like, I got to do my one last chance to be that peacemaker. Because I know my sons and I know Esau. I'm going to my husband one last time and say, hey, can we do everything you can, please, to keep this family together and not let it continue to explode and divide and all that good stuff. So,
yeah. And then in verse 7, one of the things that I really enjoyed about reading Jubilees and the testament of the 12 patriarchs is that when you're looking at them, like each one of their deaths isn't some they were sick for the last 20 years, cancer ridden, and of course that's
Right.
our world we live in today. And unfortunately we have infirmities, and it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that no one leaves the earth happy and stretches out their legs and yawns and then has a high five with their kid on the way out. It's generally more of a struggle nowadays, and it's due to our environment, our food, our lifestyles. But I love reading these stories because as she's talking to him, Jacob's like, yeah, you're going to die. You're sitting across from me. You look fine. You're healthy. You have all your strength. Come on. You're good. What are you talking about? You're going to die.
Right.
And, in our world today, we have the unfortunate, scenes of, mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever, laying on their bed in the hospital with all the stuff hooked up to them. And that's your last memories where, these guys and these girls like Rebecca, hey, I'm going to die this year, and I look 100% fine. There's not a issue. There's not a complaint. I've got all my wits about me. I'm having a whole conversation. And so it's just one of those things that, we do have to look to these people and understand that they lived differently than we did, and they lived differently than we did. And I think, that's something we can, like Joel was using as an example, is, something to emulate and something to at least strive for. Of course, we're never going to get there. I'm not saying never, because God can do awesome, and we have to follow his ways. But, our world is so different now, and it doesn't have to be. And I just pray that, we do get to have some experiences where, hey, today's the last day. Yep. But I'm going to go out, we're going golfing today, or, hey, we're going to go have our favorite meal. I'm gonna lay down on the bed. I'm gonna read you a bedtime story, and then you can close my eyes in a couple hours. You're like, oh, that was cool, man. Hey, you got to say everything you wanted to say. Say what you need to say. But
I want to go out like that Cyberdyne scientist on T2 when he's holding that weight above that explosive, and he's like,
Good stuff.
That's a blaze of glory.
Absolutely.
Or the thumb into the fire. You're like, no.
Oh, that's good stuff. I also, hey, those that are health conscious, there's a statement that's made in that's pretty neat. So kind of in between, it says, and she was not infirm in her strength. Her teeth were strong. No ailment had touched her all the days of her life. So this lady's been healthy her whole life.
Sounds like covenant blessing.
Yeah.
And then, but this middle statement here is kind of interesting. It's like, okay, she didn't have any ailments. She hadn't had any ailments all the days of her life, but in between, her teeth were strong. Right? It's just, I mean, it's a little out of place if you ask me.
She didn't have any dentures, bro. Come on.
Exactly.
No, it's not in my opinion, because the teeth, I mean,
That's
there's so much medical stuff related to your teeth.
That's where I'm going with it. That's
an
where
early indicator.
That's exactly where I'm going with that. So if you're just looking at it surface level, it just seems like a statement that could be out of place, but it really is not, because that right there is a huge indicator. There's a lot that can be told. So for those that are health conscious, look into that. There's good information that can be found in that with strong teeth. And yes, there's stuff that we know now. You can actually remineralize, regrow, and all that stuff, your teeth. So
yeah, many years ago, I was at some job a long time ago, and one of the guys that had been there for a while, he was a crackhead. He was a meth head, and everybody knew it, but they just didn't talk about it. And one day I was working next to him, and he said something about, yeah, man, I've been doing dope 20 years, and I ain't suffered nothing. Like it ain't got nothing on me. And he's like, I even got strong teeth. He's like showing me his teeth and stuff, and I'm like, did you just brag that you've been doing dope for 20 years? And he was like he thought it was like a flex that he wasn't sick, and then he still had all of his teeth and everything. And I'm like, I'm not gonna clap for you. Like, what? you just think you're doing dope for 20 years, bro. Like, now I'm just gonna keep my spoon and my lunch pail in the
plastic only.
Yeah.
No, you can't borrow it.
Yeah, it was just funny though, because even in his twisted mind, he thought he knew his teeth was related to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
interesting.
I saw the connection.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Okay.
And then in verse 8, he says, and Jacob said unto her, blessed am I, mother, because of her. He's like, I'm blessed because you're my mom. You know, and I pray for all of us that, you know, our children grow up and call us blessed, right? That's one of the things, and I think it's in Proverbs, you know, like your children will grow up and call their mother blessed because of their time, effort, energy. You raised them, you fed them. Literally, no children get here without a mama. So, you know, we all have to have a mom that's a lady in some form or fashion to arrive on the earth. And so for her to be called blessed, like I said, so it's not just our word, it's, you know, Jacob's own words. And he's saying, I'm blessed because you're awesome. Like, you know, so obviously he's giving her all the kudos. He's giving her the gold star of you're the mom. You're my favorite. You're my only mom, but you're my favorite mom.
Yeah, and if I can live, if my days can approach the days of your life and my strength remain with me like yours has, like that's a blessing.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely thinking she's joking with him, you know, down here at the end of that, you know. Yeah. You're just joshing me. I'm sure that's how he said that.
Right? No, wait a minute. Now we're reading this in the Old King. So surely thou jest, mother.
All right, what next, boys?
Let's jump to 13. This is and Isaac said to her, talking about that conversation that she said she was going to have. He says, I too know and see the deeds of Jacob. And then, of course, that means he knows he sees the deeds of Esau. Mm-hmm. He's like, I loved him formerly. So he's finally, this is his full circle moment. He's like, yes, my son that I love was awesome. He was a warrior. He was a hunter. He was a man's man. He was, ooh, yeah, we got to go testosterone it up in the wilderness. And then Jacob, he's like, you were right the whole time. He was the one doing the right stuff, and he was blessed. And yes, your vision and dream and Abraham. Okay. So, you know, it took a long time, but Isaac finally comes around and he's like, yes, I see it. He's like, I almost as though he was looking at Esau through ruby red glasses, right? He's like, I'm going to love you no matter what. I'm going to overlook all of your faults and issues because you're my favorite, you know. And he had to kind of come to that understanding. And I did use ruby red on purpose, but you know, it's just interesting to see that moment of clarity for him.
Yeah, I find it interesting, you know, for people who read this and they're like, you know, how I just don't see how you could love one child more than you love another. That doesn't make any sense. Well, I think there are weights and measures here. You know, it's yes, I love both of my children, but I love the deeds of this child. So there is more love given for this child than there is for this one, because I love what this child represents, what this child does. I love this child, but I love the deeds and actions and words and everything that comes from this child. This one doesn't have those things. So there is more to love. Yeah. I think that's kind of important to understand. It's not just, you know, he's my favorite because of X, Y, and Z. It's, you know.
Yeah, and I think Isaac does give us some insight into their cultural mindset back then, because he says, because Esau was the firstborn. Mm-hmm. That's his first go-to was, well, I loved him more because he was the firstborn, but now I see that his deeds are manifold evil and Jacob's are righteous. So and I'm sitting here going, really? Like, weren't they twins born at the same on the same nights? All right. So he came out first and you're like giving him all this favoritism, which you see the problem that this favoritism has caused when you overlook their manifold evil deeds since their youth and try to act like, you know what I'm saying? So look, Isaac's called a righteous man of God in the scriptures, but even righteous men have faults. Yep. And it seems as if this was one, just like David was a righteous man, but he clearly had some parenting faults with Absalom, right? So like Isaac is having some this is almost a 1-to-1. Isaac is his awesome son who turns on him and treats him with disdain to the point of, you know, kills him, and not in the sense of trying to start a mutiny to kill him like Absalom did, but to the point of trying to starve him and his mother out by taking all their goods.
Right.
That's worse than just coming after you with the sword. You're executing him with a slow death. Like Esau was truly evil, right? And for some reason, Isaac is overlooking all this to show him this sense of favoritism because he was the firstborn. Bro, slap out of it. Like, wake up.
Right.
You know, like something weird here. And I don't know if it's a strong cultural thing, because I don't think we share that in our modern American culture. As far as, you know, just because he's the firstborn or she's the firstborn. So anyway, it's just a unique mindset, in my opinion, that it did take him a long time to wake up from it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I call those blind spots. You know, it's not that he didn't see it. It's like almost like he was blind to it. Like it was apparent, but then he was just like, but I'm not dealing with that. And I think, you know, the way I see it is, Esau was that man's man. I think, you know, it's like if you have one kid that's, you know, always fixing engines with you and going to the court and picking a game of 5-on-5, and then you got the other kid that's like, hey, Dad, I made a paper airplane. You're like, hey, I love you to death. That's awesome, but you know, but me and him just sweated out for the last 2 hours and we won 6 games. We have a different connection.
Yeah.
And it's probably something similar to that, where it's like, there's no, like Kyle was saying, there's no love lost for Jacob. It was just, yeah, but me and Esau can go out in the woods. Me and Esau, we do man stuff.
It sounds like their personalities are more compatible
Exactly.
with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
Makes
then
me-
again, that's a double blind spot. Now you're both in, you know, not seeing it because you're like, hey, you do the wrong stuff that I do, except for it's the difference is it says for Esau, all his ways are unrighteous and violence. I'm like, violence? You know how bad you have to be everything you do is unrighteous and violent? Violent is like an action. That means you're outwardly unrighteous. Unrighteous in your heart, you're like, hey, you looked at the lady too long. You considered stealing too many times. You're like, violence? You have to literally go out of your way to commit that. That is, how do you not see that one? You know, talk about a blind spot. That's a whole blindfold, apparently.
Yeah, and that's what I think about the moment of he and Jacob both going to the tent to see Isaac, and how Isaac's words to Isaac to Esau. Isaac's words to Esau was, "Go and bring me back that meat that you know I love and satisfies my soul," or whatever. So it's like, oh, is it really that simple, Isaac? Like the way to your heart is through your stomach, like the old saying goes. Like,
Yeah.
is it really? Come on now. Come on now.
I ain't gonna lie, that might have been my weakness back. Give me some of that tasty stew, boy.
Well, and look at the comparison. When you see Isaac wanted we'll do the whole covenant and blessing stuff over a bowl of soup, and then what did Esau lose over the bowl of soup? You know what I mean? Both these men were very carnally kind of what's in front of me and what tastes good right then. And I'm not saying Isaac was unrighteous, because Isaac gets a big thumbs up from, you know, scripture, but that was that blind spot where they were just kind of like, hey, unfortunately, I'm hungry, so go get my food, and then we'll figure out the rest of the stuff later.
Was it the old Bernie Mac joke about, you know, eating the plate of the barbecue? This is so good, make you want to slap your mama. You're like, I've never had a plate of food that good where I just want to sell my inheritance, or, you know,
or call your mom up and tell you you're about to slap her. Yeah.
Yeah, or just overlook all these wicked deeds my son might be doing. Like, come on now, man.
Maybe the 12 fruit on the tree in the New Jerusalem. Maybe that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's why that spirit had to show up during that time and basically dim his eyes, dim his perception, all that stuff. And I think that when he comes, this is me saying this, of course, I'm interjecting this, but I think that when he comes to this realization, when he's having this conversation with his wife, he says, I have come to now. So I think after that whole thing went down and that spirit pulls back off of him, that it's almost like now this clarity comes in like super sharp, and you're like, yeah, I was about to really mess up, and I'm very thankful for my wife. I'm very thankful for the father. I'm very thankful. And now I see the errors of my thinking, because, yeah, he is my boy. I love him. But now he's come to this better understanding of, yes, now I love Jacob more.
Good stuff.
So, Sean, I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit, jump over to 17, verse 17 there. And then again, this is kind of giving us, I think, a little bit insight into the other realm, the other side. You know, we know we have the angel of presence that's here. We read about Abraham, the angel of presence is there with him. We know that Moshe is writing this with the angel of presence being there with him. And then we're kind of given this right here in 17. It says, and fear thou not on account, this is Isaac having this conversation with his wife. And he's like, hey, by the way, don't worry about any of it, because this here's the deal. Fear thou not on account of Jacob, for the guardian of Jacob is great and powerful and honored and praised more than the guardian of Esau. So what are your thoughts on that?
Do we think that Esau had a angelic guardian?
Yeah, that's my thought on that. I was like, he wasn't a righteous man, but what are your thoughts when he's saying, hey, the guardian that's with him?
The language does seem to imply that both of them had an angelic guardian over them. Israel, being the faithful one of the commandments, would be the one, to my opinion, that Michael would be tasked over. Whomever else the other one is, I don't know his name. And because Michael would be more praised, and my understanding, he seems to be like one of the head archangels. The other guardian over Esau, is that just out of covenant loyalty to Abraham and Isaac, that their descendants would be blessed and honored and multiplied and that kind of stuff, even though at this point he's living unrighteously. Because we're going to see later, there's this weird moment where Esau has a chance to repent and even lay down his life for Jacob, but he cowers to his children, and his children kill him. No, his children don't kill him. Jacob kills him. So because they force him to go to the battlefield. Yeah. So like he had a moment. He had a pretty strong moment to repent and to stick up for Jacob, who's righteous, and to stand against his wicked sons, which Isaac never stood against Esau. And so like it's interesting that kind of, I would imagine the guardian that's assigned to him is not going to be the righteous archangel. It's just going to be some other angel, just to make sure he stays alive, because we see blessing come from his descendancy later, like with Job. You know, and also it's a part of the promise that given to Abraham and Isaac as part of the descendancies. So it just makes, that's my initial take with what limited information we have.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think that we all have an angel that's with us all the time, that's assigned to us?
Well, you know, is it Matthew 21? Christ says, you know, the talking about the children, that their angels behold the face of the Father, you know, in heaven. So people have always wondered about, if you have a guardian angel as a child, does that mean you keep it with you as you get older? You know, like what's the deal there? I've never seen a verse that explicitly says that, but I would not put it past it because of what Enoch talks about all the angels are writing down the deeds of mankind daily.
Yeah, that's yeah. I would be honest with you. That's been my take on it for a while. Is that we've all have an angelic being, whatever that is. I know we say angel, messenger. There's different, you know, ways we describe that, but I honestly believe we all have at least an angelic being that's with us, that's assigned to us, that does right everything that's going on in our lives. What's happening. Even as far as I will say for myself, the interactions that I've had, looking back now in retrospect, where I've sat down literally, I'm saying when Divine got started, and I've shared this many times, I'm sitting at my kitchen table, I'm just having a conversation. People may think I'm schizophrenic. That's okay. But I'm having this conversation. I'm not hearing an audible voice in my dining room telling me, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. But in my spirit, I'm having this conversation. Okay, what are we supposed to do now? What is the name of the church? What is all these things? And I'm getting all this information. And it goes into detail. Like, as a matter of fact, you're doing this and you're not doing this, and all different things. And then later back, I look on that, you know, I know we say Holy Spirit, we'll say God himself, and then I'm thinking, does the Father actually use the angels that are assigned to us to speak his will through them to us, you know, in our lives, especially the journey he's had me on since birth, to have that angel of presence there with me to lead me, guide me, to speak to me. But, you know, I don't know. I don't want to ramble with it, but that's just my thoughts on it, is that I think there's a little bit more to it. And not that it's that important, or salvation, of course, but for me, looking back at all the events in my life, it's like, I wonder if that was the angel that's been assigned to me, speaking on behalf of the Father to me about all these circumstances, or times I needed to pray, or times I needed to do whatever it was. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit could have definitely been speaking in and through this angel, saying, hey, by the way, tell Joe, you need to do this right now.
Well, I mean, technically that would be the source of the information through the angel anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. That's the agency. Yeah.
It's the Spirit of the Father speaking through his ministering servants sent unto those who are in salvation. It reminds me actually of also back in Genesis, where Jacob talks about, what was it, chapter 30? Basically where he says, you know, God, you've been with me this whole time, this whole journey, you know? And so it's almost as if Jacob, I can't remember the exact verse, but it's as if he knows that he has had a guardian with him from Yahweh this whole time.
Yep.
And so
it was almost like, I wouldn't have made it on this journey if it wasn't for you, kind of language.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so this language is not out of the ordinary, in my opinion. This is the first time it's ever happened in my life. I mean, I've had dreams, to speak on what you're saying, Joe, is about like, you don't hear an audible voice or anything like that. But I've had dreams where it was like clearly Yahweh was speaking to me for correction, rebuke, and course correction, that kind of thing. But I've had other dreams where I felt like it was more of a there was something spiritual, wonderful happening that I took positive things away from, but no like clear messages, no blueprints, right? No tablets from heaven. You know, this is what's going to happen to you and your children throughout the rest of the ages. Now I've had other times where I've had like demonic dreams where clear shades, demons are trying to attack me, right? And other times where I've just saw them in my dreams. And so, but they didn't try to attack me, but I just saw that they were there, you know? And so, just recently in a good way, I think if there's an angel in my presence, tasked to my life or to Levi's life, one of the two said something. This was probably like right after Levi was born. He was like 2 months old, not even 2 months old. And I'm changing his diaper. It's like 2 a.m. And I hear another man laughing, like Levi's doing something silly. And maybe it was actually more like when he was like 4 or 5 months old, because he was already giggling. And I hear a man laughing, and it startled me to the point where I'm like, you know, I'm like turned around. I thought somebody was right behind me.
Yeah.
You know, like in the house. I like let go of him off the changing table to turn around. Thought I was about to handle business. Like I didn't know what was going on. It freaked me out. It was that clear, you know. And then I just kind of like had a peace wash over me, like I wasn't afraid anymore, you know. And I just thought to myself, oh, okay. I mean, I wasn't startled. I didn't decide to go check the house and look in all the closets or nothing like that. I was just like, oh, okay, all right. Because then I thought about it. I was like, you know,
Well,
if they're actual persons, why wouldn't they love children as much as we love children? You know what I mean? In all the righteous ways, like, and be enamored by their cuteness and their silly things they do. And, you know, and I'm sitting there, and I told Lindsay about it, and she was kind of startled at first. And I was like, no, I was not afraid. It was okay. It was like a cool thing. I was okay, you know, and it wasn't an ominous, deep, demonic voice, some snarling, you know, slithering sound, you know. No, it was like a guy laughing. And I was like, that's par for the course with someone's walking in righteousness who, you know, like the kingdom of heaven is like these children who are innocent and being silly and making, you know what I'm saying? So it was just a blessing of a thing. It never happened to me before like that in my life outside of dreams. I don't pray for angelic visitations. So that's why it was surprising to me. I'm not expecting this type of stuff. I don't even know how to pray like for something like, I don't even know if we should pray for something like that. Right. So like, I don't pray for stuff like that to happen to me, you know, just like I don't pray for God to give me spiritual dreams either. They just happened at different times in my life. And so this was a kind of a recent thing that happened just a few months back, and I wasn't afraid. It was a good thing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And then of course the logical side the next morning kicked in after I got some sleep, and the logical side was like, okay, so really, you're just gonna give me a giggle? Can I ask some questions? Can we chat for a little bit? Like,
just know that I'm here. That's all you need to know.
Like,
You got any extra?
I'll make you a
tablets
meal.
You want to share?
I know how to cook clean. I'll make you a meal. Come on, man.
You're gonna get that big screen video replay of your angel going, oh.
Yeah. And me like
he forgot to hit the mute button.
Turning around and throwing my arms through his head and being like, what are you doing, man?
You're not on mute. You're not on mute.
Yeah.
It's too funny.
You might have got written up that night. You know you did wrong.
You know what? We could probably go on and on and on about this. Maybe this would be a great topic that we can maybe get together on and try to dig into this a little bit. It'd be a really interesting discussion, I think, about the angelic interaction with us. I think that'd be a cool topic. I don't want to throw too much in there, but whether it be an angel or what, I can say 100% that if not for Yah intervening, there's multiple times throughout my life that I'd be dead for sure. You know, and that's just the things that would that would take my life. I mean, who knows what else that I'm unaware of, you know, but
Oh yeah, I think that the angels are like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yep.
He's jumping off the couch.
The little whistle.
And they're just, because like when I'm constantly catching Levi from hurting himself constantly, you know what I mean? I'm just like, whoa, got him. I think they're doing that with us all day long. Yeah.
I believe so. I've had everything from a bullet coming through the windshield dead at me and somehow managed to go out the other side of the rear window of the car.
Wow.
I've been in an automobile accident where after the wreck, I got out to go check on the other person, and there was already people stopped checking on her by the time I got over there. And, a woman's face just turned white looking at me, and I'm over there going, are you okay? Just like I am right now. Are you okay? How, and the lady she just lost all color in her complexion. She goes, I just checked on you. You were dead. Like I've had lots of things happen in my life like that, where the Father is just taking care of me. So, I mean, I tend to believe that, yes, there is some angelic interaction going on with our lives, even if just, hey, keep him alive. It's not his time until this second on this date, it's not his time. So you just keep him alive until then.
Yeah, there was a guy in youth group that a long time ago, like 20 years ago, but this guy in youth group, he was like 28, 29, and he had a severe wreck in his Jeep, and the top was off of his Jeep, and he rolled it and got into a multi-car accident, and he still had a limp and an impairity, a speech impairity as a result, because his head was broken open. But he had a seatbelt on, and this was him drunk driving, going to the lake. Gets in a car wreck. He's sitting, his seatbelt is holding him upside down as his Jeep's toppled over. His head's busted open, bleeding everywhere. His hips crushed, all kinds of stuff. And he looks over, nice seat next to him. There's an angel sitting upside down, basically talking to him, saying, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Just relax. And he said he knew it was an angel. Like there was nobody in the car with him to begin with. But this is some dude sitting upside down without a seatbelt on. It wasn't there to begin with. looking him in the eyes and keeping him calm and keeping him focused until paramedics showed up, and then he disappeared. So after he got out of the hospital, went to Bible school. Gave his heart to Christ, went to Bible school, became an evangelist. Like he was on fire for God. Like that's his story. He told everybody that he saw an angel as he was upside down in his Jeep on the side of the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I would say this to add to that, and people will say, well, why didn't he just get fully healed then? Because his testimony is that what happened.
That's right.
That is his testimony, Russ. So everyone else may look, well, he can't talk, maybe completely okay, or he's got a limp. Hey, that limp is a reminder every day that you could have been dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is my witness now to the miraculousness of our Heavenly Father. And sometimes it doesn't mean we're going to walk away completely. And sometimes we do. Sometimes people say, hey, I've seen accidents, man, where people, they should have been. I'm talking about the car's completely ripped open. You can't even tell what make or model it is. And the person comes out with minor scratches. And you're like, that's God. But in this man's situation, what happened? He got saved.
Yeah.
That was, that out of everything else, whether he ever got healed or not, given your, changing your course of your direction of your life. Because guess what? We're getting a new one of these anyways, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. This is temporary.
This is temporary.
Yeah.
So now that gets to be his witness. As much as the Father uses him. So amen to that.
And who says he's not going to be healed?
Yeah.
What about the I can't remember the guy's name, but there's the guy's preaching.
And he has the thing with his voice.
Yeah, he's had this thing where he had something
like this the whole
he's
time.
talking like that. Yeah, he's talking like that the whole time. It's something like that's like really messed up. Not he lost his voice. Like no, something's messed up, and he doesn't have a voice anymore.
And it's been this way for a long time.
Been this way for a long time. And as he's preaching on faith, I believe it was, it just as he's talking, it just miraculously heals, and he's good. Like it's recorded, and it's
I've never seen that. Is that a video that was recorded?
I've only heard the audio from it, but I'll see if I can find that and send it to you. It's
that'd be
awesome.
Pretty cool.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
You can, it doesn't feel like it's, done.
It's not fake. There's no way it can be fake.
Because you can tell his immediate response was, "Oh my gosh," like you go from talking like Kennedy, what's that guy's name? Robert Kennedy, to sounding like a normal voice, and it's like, and the guy's like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
wild.
It's pretty cool.
Well, Christ promises to heal us. I mean, he was sent to be our healing for us, but clearly when you give your heart to him and start the discipleship process, you're not always healed of all your ailments. And this is the part where I try to remind folks that's why he fulfills the promise and all of its totality at the resurrection. That's why we're called incorruptible at that point. It's a little point I always try to bring up with the free grace crowd, that think that they just put their thoughts of persuasion into Christ being who he is and suddenly they're saved. And I'm like, it's not about the promises of Christ and how he actually saves you. He promises to give you, to heal you, all of your infirmities, he'll heal all of your sicknesses, weaknesses, Jeremiah talks about. And there's a time for that, an appointed time for that.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay, so last question on the angel thing. So if we have an angel appointed to us, and if that original angel is just there to keep us alive until a certain time frame, if we start serving the Most High, doing his ways, does our angel get a promotion, or do we get a new angel, or what's going on there? Okay. I mean, my angel's probably sitting there going, "Come on, dude, get it together. I've been at this for 40 years,
He probably looked at the assignment sheet when you were born and went, "Oh, man.
I need a promotion."
Georgia, are you serious?
Yeah, it's hot.
Okay. All right, what we got next, boys?
Well, we'll wrap up this chapter or at least not wrap it up, but at least look at verse 27. And it says, they ate, they drank, her sons that night. So this is after they have this whole long conversation. Isaac goes to him, is like, "Hey guys, come on, you get along, play well together. Esau's playing nice here." And I think it's like we talked about in our original video. I believe Esau is pretty genuine here. I think he had a moment of like, I really want the stuff that everybody's talking about. Mom and dad are happy. Jacob's happy. I'm kind of the odd one out. So if I were to just jump into the scenario and just take it for what it is, maybe I'll have all this cool blessings and be awesome and be this favored and holy and special stuff too. You know what? I'll serve you and I'll love you and I'll take care of you. And me and you, we're brothers to the end. Let's shake on it and spit in our hands and all kind of stuff, right? Let's call it a day. And then so after all that, mom and dad are like, "All right, well, we did the best we could. This is the most we could do, is get them to come to the table." So they eat, they drink. And then that's where she dies. And so she was like, when Jacob now has to give some credibility to mom, because she said, "Hey, I'm gonna die," and then she dies. So he's like, okay, she knew what she was talking about. Her words are true, because that's pretty much prophecy. I will be dying soon, and then she dies soon. I think that gives a lot of validity to her words. But again, she ate with them, she drank with them, they had a good night. She was still healthy, she was still happy. And then when she got buried in the double cave, that same double cave that we're going to read pretty much from early to late and all the way through the New Testament. They're still doing stuff over there with the well and the well of Jacob and Abraham and the oak of Mamre. These points, they're not just in here for arbitrary reasons. They carry through the whole narrative.
I want to know where this cave is, man. You would think with our ground penetrating radar that we have that we'd be able to find it by now. Even if the bones have already been exhumed and taken somewhere else at some point in history. What an awesome testimony at some point in Israel. I think this particular geographical area is controlled by Muslims.
Yeah,
but
I think the Father's just preserving it right now.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if like all their bones were stopped. Oh my goodness, that would be. Can you imagine at the resurrection if they all come walking out of this cave? Like obviously he could raise them up outside of that geographical area, right, from Sheol. But what if just for the testimony of it all, like it talks about in 2nd Baruch?
I think they will.
Just that this whole family just goes walking
one
out
by one. You're like, and then Abraham, then his son, then his next son, and the ladies.
Like 25 of them just come walking out, and just be like, oh, and then they just take off.
How big is this cave?
Yeah, just a whole bunch of mighty ones show up and just take off, and people are just like, oh. Yeah, so are they looking at that? Or are they looking at Christ descending? And they're like, which one do you look at? It's going to be an amazing day.
I think my personal thought on that, I mean, I can't base this on anything except my own thought, but I personally think that wherever the remains of someone is, even if it's scattered across the ocean floor. I think that I personally believe that that's where they will be resurrected from, so that, and this is why I say that, so that it literally is a witness to everyone over the entire earth.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Well, because it is the Deuteronomy 30 verse 4 prophecy.
And
Because-
it's a second witness. You have Yeshua and you have everyone. Sorry.
Yeah. You're gathered from everywhere under the heaven where you've been scattered. Yeah.
So that's my thought.
Yeah. A whole bunch of light brights show up all over the earth.
Yep.
And then start converging up. And they're like, ooh, ah. And then as they're looking at all the light brights converging up, then you start to see the Son of Man returning, the powers of the heaven shaking, and then it's just, Godzilla.
What is that? Oh.
Why do I feel like kneeling? Why are we all kneeling right now?
Yeah. I'm
All right.
trying to do the math on like first resurrection happens at the last trumpet that starts off the day, and then they all taken up to the barn, and then does he come down immediately after, or it says I'll meet him in there just coming, so I guess he's already on his way, but that's a long time period. So as that's happening, is Leviathan and Behemoth also making themselves known, and then everyone's losing their footing to where they have to fall on their back and watch Christ descend. Massive earthquake that destroys the cities of the nations. Everyone's on their back looking at the sky.
Yeah. Well, there's no buildings to cover you. There's nothing in the way. You're like, oh, I couldn't see because of the Empire State Building. No, you could see. There it is right there.
Yeah.
Sean, have you ever seen I don't think it's the name of their channel, but it's one of the descriptors they use is ninjas or butterflies.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the name of their channel.
Is it the name of the channel? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the name was different in the actual YouTube.
Yeah, these guys, they are kind of all over the place. I believe that they are Christians, and they do address a lot of Christian things, but they explore the odds and ends of things outside. They the stuff that most Christianity would think is like
What's the fringe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good word. So so they look into Enoch and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly where their faith is. But anyway, that's kind of what they do. But anyway, go ahead, Joe,
I was saying, you brought up Behemoth. It made me think. I think there's an episode or a short I saw of theirs where they said that I think it was them. I want to give them credit for it, but we know Behemoth and Leviathan they're pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was, I guess, a type of satellite image right off the coast of California. This dark shadow that was moving through the water, but we're talking about something that was like the size of a state, easily. And they had I don't know if it was accidentally or however, but there was this very large dark object moving through the water that, I mean, it's big, like it's huge.
It was the size of continents, or half of continents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was big.
And
it was something that showed up on the radar, and then it went away.
Yeah,
so it wasn't there, but it was definitely that, according to them, it was moving, and then
And this is something radar from the military that they somehow was released, or
yeah, I'm not sure if it was satellite imaging or however they were taking the shot of the water over the waters, and I could see that there was a very large shadow was in the water, and that it had, and then over days the progression of it moving, and it went away. But
I think it's I don't know if it was actually the site, the NOAA, NOAA. I don't know if it was that, or which I think that's hilarious that's what NOAA, that's what they use for that. But it was one of those sites that have to do with measuring wind and waves and all that stuff. So yeah, and weather patterns and all that. So
it looked to be hundreds of miles long.
It was a big spot, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge.
Huge.
You got to do the accordion hands. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's huge.
All right. Well, I got a question. So at the last part of 35 here, and we've already kind of mentioned it, the thing got brought up about the double cave. Mm-hmm. And we see that the double cave is mentioned all over the place in Scripture, right? I got a question. And maybe it is plainly stated. If it is, I don't remember what it is. Can y'all clarify for me something? What is the significance of this being a double cave? Like, I understand that, when you have a burial cave, it's essentially you have a place to put bones, or even maybe a place to put a body while it does its thing, and then you place the bones somewhere, right? Like, so all the bones are piled up in an area for those that have, disintegrated. What is the significance of this double part here? Why is it always addressed as a double cave, not just the cave?
Is there 2 entrances to 2 different caves, or is it one entrance and then there's like a second room that opens up inside of the first entrance?
Yeah, and the third alternative that I've heard is it's double in size. So it is a giant cave. It's a double size cave. So normally you'd be able to fit 10 people. Well, this one can fit 20 people. So I've heard that also. It was just in double in volume, double in availability. And then that's why it was such a big factor, because so many people end up getting buried there. We're like, a normal cave, you're like, all right, 5, 6 people, it's full. We're done. Next, go somewhere else. We're here. It's, you can have everybody from Abraham forward use the same cave.
And what are we talking about? Caves don't have soil. So are these mummies in there?
Well, I know they lay their, like with Yeshua, they lay their bones and then wrap them in the cloth
the
or whatever.
spices, the oil, the myrrh.
Yeah. And then eventually they do collect their bones and put them in that little small box. I forgot what it's called, but the little special box.
Okay.
Or
So you think that
or something?
you think there was some ongoing maintenance done here, where like the descendants went back in and after a certain amount of time unwrapped them and took their bones and put them in a box?
Yeah, after like a
Probably.
year.
Okay.
That's my understanding, is that a body was laid out. It does its decaying process, and after like a year, you essentially collect the bones and then place them
Right.
in a spot.
So this cave, if I walked into it, I'd see like what? Like a warehouse? I'd see a whole bunch of little boxes stacked up somewhere.
Whether it's boxes or jars or whatever, but
Or
yes,
just wrapped in, very nicely wrapped together, and
linen or something. Yeah,
Right.
but there should be distinct, we'll just call it piles of bones, I would assume. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I have another thought that just came to mind as y'all were talking. Does this double cave have any significance to does it lend to the idea that the people who are put here are people who have double portions?
I wouldn't say so, right?
Probably not. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
I don't.
I honestly think you're on the right track here, Kyle, with the one portion of it would be for the decomposition of the body, right? If that's
all
what it
caves
means.
are like that.
Yes, I know, but this is also serving as the burial chamber. See, when Yeshua was put into the grave, that would have never been his permanent burial. If he would have just been the regular guy, died, they would have collected his bones at some point. That's why it was so important.
And moved his bones to another location.
Right. His bones would have moved to another location. This is why it's so important that this was never, another dead body had never been laying there. Because that would not have been proper for him to be placed somewhere where another dead body had been. So I think that's, there's something very significant with that. But I think it's just the burial place is strictly what it is when you decompose. That's why they come with the oils, they anoint the body, they, in the process of it decaying. Because eventually they're going to have to come in there and remove the bones. Now, I don't think they take every exact bone that's in there, but they're going to remove the bones and it's going to be placed somewhere proper so that the next body can then come in and be used in that place. So I think that's why it's a double cave in that decomposition. Then it can be eventually moved from there and then placed where the rest of the bones are at, wherever all the family members are.
Okay, so you're thinking 2 chambers, one for the decomposition,
Yes.
one for the placement of the bones. Okay.
Yeah, proper place for decomposition and a proper place of technically saying buried or a place where their bones are put.
And is there a gate guarding the entrance to these caves? How do you stop grave robbers? How do you stop the Amorites from just hanging out in there, waiting for them to come back a year later and surprising them inside with an ambush?
That's a good question, brother.
Is it hidden?
Yeah.
Well, clearly it's hidden from us right now.
Cue the Indiana Jones music. Let's do this.
Yeah, Well, you remember Indiana Jones when the Ark of the Covenant busts open, but it wasn't the best thing coming forth. Like you go near the remains of the anointed one, God's people. All of a sudden, you're seeing things that you ain't never seen before. You're like,
you step into the cave with all your Amorite armor on, and you look up at a 15-foot angel just smiling at you.
Yeah, he's doing that same laugh like you heard in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Penitent man shall pass. Remember that. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, guys.
There's a lot here, man. I would love to figure out what's going on with this cave. Think about it though. Like if all these people are buried here, talk about an archaeological witness to so many documents of Hebrew history and scripture. Like this would be like maybe a greater finding than the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like this would be like we have, like I've got bones, and they'll start wanting to do DNA tests on the bones. And they'll start like, I got bones of this dude. This box said Abraham. I got his whole bone structure here. There's 208 bones in here. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting because when we talk about those little burial boxes, and I know I'm kind of speaking lightly on it, but that's what they are. And when we look at modern day Israel and the way the Jewish faith is, even though they don't really got the whole thing with Yeshua down yet, when you go look at the Mount of Olives, it's covered with those little boxes because everybody wants to be buried where they know Yeshua says, I will set foot back down in the same place that I left. So they're Jewish. They don't really believe in the first coming of Messiah, but all their bones, there's just thousands of boxes all over the Mount of Olives where they think he's going to return because they want to be as close as possible to the return of the Messiah. They want to be right there at ground zero. So if you ever Google, you type in Mount of Olive burial boxes, there's like just tons and tons and tons of them. And so we get to see a physical representation of like what that actually is. And like they're way too small for a whole body. They're just there for bones. And so they die, like Joe was saying. They turn into bones, and then they put them in a small box and take them to the Mount of Olives for the people who can, pay enough money or to get that real estate. And yeah, it's just hilarious that it's right there where, Yeshua's like, oh, this is where I'm coming back because I'm the Messiah, and then it'll be my second coming. And they're like, well, we're just waiting for the first coming, but just in case, bury me right where his feet are going to be.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is Abraham and his time period, did they have the same burial practice as modern day concept is what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I know we read about it a little bit where it says,
Joseph, they got Joseph's bones.
Yeah, collect my bones. Yeah, so they definitely have a few instances where where they give that exact definition for it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a lot here, man. That would be the greatest discovery ever. You would it would set the world on fire. Could be why, the Rockefellers were like, give that portion to the Muslims. They'll never let anybody get in there.
Right. Okay, one more theory on that, and I'll hush after this. But what if this double cave, not only is it hidden, but it's a double cave in the sense that the cave serves two purposes. One is the traditional means where yes, they are decomposing, and the site of the bones and all that in one portion. What if the second portion, because I can't imagine that they would put them all together, but what if the second portion of the cave, separate room, is where the books that we want to find are hidden?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that is a movie on Sci-Fi Channel. It came out several years ago, The Librarian.
Oh, I don't know. I'm talking about the books, like, the remedies for all ailments and all that. Right.
Could be.
Yeah.
Who knows what's in there with them?
Okay. All right. Our show has turned into speculation. So,
Well, some further speculation. There's probably a Catholic church on top of it.
Yeah, probably.
And you'll never find it then.
Yep. Okay. Well, what about 36, boys? What we got in 36? It's standing out.
I love verse 3. It says, "And this I command you, my sons, that you practice righteousness and uprightness on the earth, so that the Lord may bring upon you all that the Lord said that he would do to Abraham and to his seeds. Love one another, my sons, your brothers, as a man loves his own soul. Let each seek in what he may benefit his brother, and act together on the earth, and let them love each other as their own souls." So
Amen.
Clearly, Isaac is he's given the fatherly advice before he passes, but unfortunately it's fallen on Esau's deaf ears, Esau's fake placating deaf ears. But this is great advice for everyone at all times.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would say Micah 6:8, or not Micah 6:8, the passage about walking in singleness. We see that also mentioned a bunch in the Testament 12 patriarchs. And this is just, I love it. Let each other seek in what he may benefit his brother. Like that's a mindset of, it's not just the platitude of, oh, I love my brothers, I love myself. No, that's an active mindset that you're encouraged to. You seek out, what can I do to benefit my brother, not to tear him down, not to take advantage of him. How can I benefit him?
Yeah, one of the 2 greatest commandments, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole chapter is just, this is some really good advice that we can apply to our lives throughout all the ages. So good, full of good stuff in here.
Yeah, I think as Isaac's saying this, he's saying it with like every fiber of emotion and being in his body. He's like, if you could just get this, if you guys could just love each other. I know, Esau, dude, I get it. You're off in left field. And Jacob, I get it. You can't hate him because he's off in left field. So, this is actually a call for both of them to come to the middle. Jacob's like, I'm running full speed toward the Heavenly Father and living in righteousness. So I'm leaving my brother in the dust. And Esau's running full speed in unrighteousness and violence. He's running full speed in opposition. So both of them actually have to take steps forward toward each other. It's not like Esau, go be like your brother. It's Jacob, don't leave him so far behind. Bring him along with you. But then Esau, you got to step it up so you guys can meet in the middle and then walk forward together. So yeah, Jacob, you may be 2 steps ahead. Take 1 step back and you'll take 10 forward because of it. And Esau, dude, you just got to get on board. And then in 7, it says, now go make a great oath. Like, please, 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 you 2 kids, you've got the world in front of you. You're literally children of promise. You're children of Abraham. Like there is nothing in the world that can stop you from being the absolute, just top tier, top dogs. When they talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Esau gets left out of that list. It could have easily been Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Esau, but Esau doesn't make the list because of his choices. But Isaac in that moment, he's like, yeah, almost, you're right there. It's just one decision. It's 1 step forward. Just please, please. I just feel like Isaac's just pleading with every fiber in his being. Like, you guys have no idea what the future looks like if you just work together, if you just try hard, if you just get together on one page and love each other. There's no end to the story of Jacob and Esau.
Mm-hmm.
So I got something on verse 7. If you guys
want. Do it. Yeah.
This oath, which is greater than it by the name glorious and honor, great and splendid and wonderful and mighty, which created the heavens and the earth and all things together. Very interesting. And now and the beginning of the verse says, and now I shall make you swear a great oath, which is, and then he goes in to explain this great oath. There's no greater by it than name glorious. So by the name glorious. So it's like the name attached to the oath. That gives us obviously we know who that name is.
Mm-hmm.
1 Enoch 69, verse 13. And this is the task of Cosbiel, the chief of the oath, which he showed to the holy ones when he dwelt high above in glory, and his name is Beka. This angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name, that he might enunciate it in the oath, so that those might quake before that name and the oath, who revealed all that was in secret to the children of men. And this is the power of this oath, for it's powerful and strong, and he placed his oath, and he placed this oath, Ake, in the hand of Michael. And these are the secrets of this oath. They're strong through this oath, and the heaven was suspended before the world was created and forever. And through it, the earth was founded upon the water, and from those secret recesses, the mountains came beautiful waters, from the creation of the world unto eternity. And through that oath, the sea was created, and as its foundation, he set for it sand against the time of his anger, dare not pass beyond it from the creation of the world into eternity. And through that oath are the depths made fast and abide and stir not from their place from eternity to eternity. And through that oath, the sun and the moon complete their course and deviate not from their ordinance from eternity to eternity. And through that oath, the stars complete their course, and he calls them by their names, and they answer him from eternity to eternity. In like manner, so do the spirits of the waters and of the winds, and all the zephyrs and their paths from all the quarters of the winds. Like, bro, it keeps going, but I'm going to skip down to verse 25. And this oath is mighty over them, and through it they are preserved. Talking about all the things in creation I just mentioned, and their paths are preserved. Talking about the luminaries, and their course is not destroyed. So the fundamental aspects of creation itself are preserved through this oath and this name, this powerful oath and this powerful name. It's crazy. And Jacob's calling upon this, in my opinion. He's calling upon this concept to try to bind Jacob and Esau to not kill each other and to get along. Like he's pulling a deep cut into Enoch, in my opinion, going, look, guys, this is the oath.
Yeah.
The oath of, yeah. Anyway, that's just my understanding of that passage. It's like I agree with, I don't think, Joe, I think you, or maybe Kyle, I can't remember who said this just now, but it's like Isaac's heart felt every fiber of his being. He's trying to get these kids not to kill each other.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think any of us on here are sacred namers. But this seems like one of those things that maybe is.
I would always point back to the definition. The Shem is the authority, recognition. Then it's the concept of the name is not just the pronunciation specifically, but it goes along with the power of it. Now, Hebrew was supposedly, according to Jubilees, creation was made in Hebrew. The angel was asking for the specific pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be something unique.
Right. And I don't think the Hebrew that we have today is the Hebrew that was then anyway, but
yeah.
Okay. It's not that we have to.
Top tier angels asking permission to have access to this oath.
Right.
I don't know why the oath is given to this rebellious angel for starters, but that seems to be the way the text reads in First Enoch.
Well, I'm sure he wasn't rebellious when he received it.
That's the assumption, right?
Yeah,
but
hopefully.
It goes on to, like it says, this was the oath who revealed all that was in secret to the children of men. So it's like, it says specifically that they might quake before the name and oath who revealed all that was in secret to the children. So it seems as if the oath is attached to the name that they needed to know how to pronounce. And why doesn't an angel already know how to pronounce this?
Maybe they don't know everything then.
That's what we've always tried to say. Is they don't know everything.
Well, even like Yeshua, when he comes back, he says he has a new name, so it's like, who knows what that name is yet? He doesn't even know what day he's coming back, much less the name that he's going to receive. It seems as though God, the Father himself, is like, I hold a few cards close to the chest. These are just for me, not even my own son, who can't be the same person as me, or else he would know this. He doesn't even get to know this information, because if he was me, he would already know it. So he's not me, but there's that.
I just had this hilarious comedy sketch where Christ shows up, all the nations are looking at him, sea of people in front of him. My new name, Daryl.
There's my other brother, Daryl.
Did he say Daryl? Yeah, that would be hilarious.
That's fantastic. That's
boy.
good stuff, man.
So
I don't think that it's referring to. I don't think he's going to lose the name Yeshua. Personally, I think that passage is referring to his new authority.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So Sean, we were going through this earlier with Anchor to Truth. We did this recording on this chapter. For me, the way I see some of this broken down as well is when Isaac is speaking to Jacob and Esau, I almost feel like it's like, because we have in the previous chapters, nothing but good. Jacob, faithful, righteous, listens to his mama, even though he's in his, however old he is, 40s, 50s, 60 years old by the time he gets a wife. He's been faithful and everything. I almost feel like when Dad sat down, he's like, okay, I'm going to make this so that it's not obvious I'm talking to Esau. But, hey, boys, by the way, and it's almost like, he almost gives a wink to Jacob like, hey, you're good. But I need to address you both at the same time so that this doesn't look like I'm showing, parading your brother in front of you. Yeah. So I'm going to, hey, by the way, boys, this is it. This is the oath. And if you break this oath, and it's almost like he's kind of cutting his eyes towards Esau a little bit, going, if you break this oath.
Right.
And the reason why I feel like,
well, I hear you. And that's kind of why I made the statement earlier about it's falling on deaf ears, Esau's deaf ears. But didn't Jacob already tell his mom earlier on, I'll kill him if he comes after me?
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those brotherly knee-jerk things like, oh, he wants to come. Oh, let him come after me.
Yeah.
Okay. He thinks he's all that in a bag of Skittles, but I'll show him who I am.
I got hands too.
That's right.
But the reason why I say this, because when we go further into the chapter,
I got keys to the vending machine.
And this is the cool part here, where I do think there was a change in Esau temporarily right before we get to chapter 37, unfortunately, and everything that we'll talk about later on that. But it says in verse 17, it says, and he ended commanding them. So this is Isaac speaking to his sons, commanding them and blessing them, and they ate and drank together before him. And he rejoiced, that's being Isaac, rejoiced because there was one mind between them.
Mm-hmm.
And they went forth from him and rested that day and slept. So it's almost like Isaac's like, man, I laid it out heavy for these boys. You know, regardless if it was mostly towards Esau or not, I laid it out to him like, this is the deal. And then all of a sudden he's realizing like, hey, I think we're good. And in verse 18 it says, it says in verse 18 it says, and Isaac slept on his bed that day rejoicing, and he slept the eternal sleep and died 180 years old. He completed 25 weeks and 5 years, and his two sons, Esau and Jacob, buried him. And then it says in verse 19, Esau went to the land of Edom, to the mountains of Seir, and dwelt there. So it almost feels like at this point, because when we get to 37, and of course we'll discuss that later, but it almost feels like just for that moment, maybe Esau was like, you know what?
They had the family dynamic.
I can do better.
Mhm.
I can be better, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that Isaac's seeing them, he's like, hey, me and my boys are here, and now I can die happy. He's literally rejoicing in his deathbed. How many people do that? Oh, wow, that's cool, man. Yeah. And then he dies. He literally dies happy.
That's good. I never noticed that. That's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Which makes the following chapters that much more tragic.
Yeah,
it also makes me wonder if his boys were with him.
Yeah.
Was Esau's boys with him? Because they're clearly the corrupting influence later.
I'd say probably not. Because it sounds like they don't even understand what's going on. They're like, why don't you get the blessing? You go get your stuff. It belongs to you, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. The sad part is when his sons, and again, we'll discuss it when we get there later, but his sons are like, Dad, you either do this or we're going to kill you.
Yeah.
Right.
So they literally put Esau on. It's almost like the adversary came in and said, oh, we can't have this.
Yeah.
We can't have this Akkadness in this family. We can't have that. So I'm going to actually pit your sons against you that you love. And, you know, and then again, when we get there, there's some wording in there that describes it's if you feel like it's that flesh and that spirit moment for Esau, and he just doesn't choose wisely.
I think he was on board with what his father told him on this deathbed until his children swayed him. That's my opinion. And I don't think his children were there because
didn't his children prompt him to go after Jacob?
Right. Yeah. And this was what was said to him in verse 9, and I'm backing up a little bit here, but in verse 9 it says, and if either of you deviseth evil against his brother, know that from henceforth everyone that deviseth evil against his brother will fall into his hand and will be rooted out of the land of the living, and his seed will be destroyed from under heaven. So he's like, okay,
yeah, I'm good.
Point taken. I got you. Right.
Noted.
You know, no wonder he didn't want to do it. You know, when his sons were trying to egg him on, he's like, no.
And you'll never convince
I don't want that
me.
smoke.
Yeah, exactly. Because Isaac is coming in as patriarch and former priest, and I don't think you'll ever convince me that he's not threatening them with eternal destruction in the lake of fire. Having the seed destroyed from under heaven.
Yeah, and you kind of see that as it goes in. It talks about the day of turbulence and the flame that burnt Sodom. And then I love one of the things that I've really tried to understand better, and you know, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, or you know, I would love to hear your opinions on this. Is like it talks about like being blotted out. And, you know, it talks about the book of discipline. I'm sure that just means, you know, people who are followers of Christ and followers of the Most High and his laws and his ways. And obviously that's what discipline means, is to disciple. And, you know, we know the Great Commission. But being blotted out, that, you know, that term, like I always look as like you either are in or you're out. But blotted out means you were there, your name was written down, and then you took some ink and was like, nah, I'm good, pass. You know, no longer in the book. And that's always like a scary feeling of, there's like an idea that, oh, well, because you're Esau and you're related to Isaac, you're just automatically in. And it's like, well, that's kind of the goal. You were born into the situation. It's like circumcising your child or baby dedication. It's kind of like, I want you to be in this so much that from birth I'm going to raise you up in this way. But only you can be the reason why you're blotted out. Like we're essentially like destined for good. And it's our own choices. It's when we let sin into the life. It's when we let our mind and bodies and flesh become corrupted, is where he's like, well, at this point, you've been blotted out. Like I had to take the pen and scratch your name off the list. You know, it's like, it's such a weird feeling. Like people say, oh, I'm just going to hell. Oh, I'm just a bad person. There's no hope for me. He's like, no, that's your choice. You get to make that decision. And I think that's why we get those verses like, choose this day whom you're going to serve, choose whether the blessing or the curse. Like it's all up to you. And I think when he's looking at Jacob and Esau, he's like, this is up to you. You're both on the way, but it's up to you. And, like now Esau, your past, it's your past, but we're going to leave that in the past. Today forward, we're going to eat, we're going to talk. You've swore, I swore, he swore, we're all good. You're written down. Don't let yourself get blotted out. And I think that's the way that I've always seen that. And then we see that, carry over into the canon as well about being blotted out. So I just want to see what you guys thought about that idea or concept.
Yeah. Do you mean, are you okay? So let me ask a quick question real quick. Do you think there's two books, Book of Discipline and Book of Life? Or do you think the Book of Life is an additional adjective for the Book of Discipline?
I've read it both ways. I leave the option open for it being both.
Okay.
So that's not a good answer, but
well, in Revelation, when it comes time for judgment, it does say that the books were open.
That's what comes to my mind.
Yeah. And those not written in the Lamb's Book of Life being a book, but it said these books were open, and this was, the testimony of what you did, and through. That's why I believe that we do have angels that are recording us. And but me personally, on this one, I don't think that those who die in Messiah or those who are believers that we reach that part of the judgment. I personally think that judgment is reserved for those who rejected Messiah. Then the books are open to say, okay, out of fairness to judge your life, here it is. Here's your life open up. I don't think that's me right now. I don't think we as believers who pass on, it says that we will not be judged at the end. But I do believe that those who were not or rejected God or whatever, it's like, okay, out of fairness, we have to do righteous judging. Those books are open of your life, gone through, and those who are not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life, they were cast into the lake of fire. So that's just my opinion.
Odd question with that.
From you, it's not, but go ahead.
Okay, if there is a Lamb's Book of Life, is there a Book of Life that's not the Lamb's?
I would say no, because from before the foundation of the earth, he was appointed to this messiahship before the sun, moon, and stars. Enoch chapter 48, right before the sun, moon, and stars, he was given a name, and then that same declaration in front of the angels, it also says, "And the Gentiles will put their faith and trust in him."
Okay, so that's kind of always been my thought, and this literally, as we're talking, just popped in my head for the first time. So I'm just fleshing this out with you guys here live. So the reason why I asked that is, who's going to be in the Lamb's Book of Life? Those who keep the commandments and have the testimony of Yeshua, right? We know that one's plainly.
People that exhibited discipline. Okay.
Now, what about those that didn't have Torah that are going to receive judgment and still make it into the kingdom?
You mean because their actions are like a law unto themselves?
Mm-hmm.
A law that requires discipline?
Are they going to be specifically in that book, or is there a different book of life? I don't know. I guess I'm just questioning that. Like, I don't know if we even have an answer to that. I don't know. But it's just interesting that it's phrased as the Lamb's Book of Life, almost as if it's separating it from another book of life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense as to why I'm saying that out loud? Yeah. Like, obviously, I know there's one way, right?
Well, wait a second. What is the exact wording here in Exodus 34?
Sean, if I'm good for anything, it's off the wall questions, brother.
He says, Exodus 32:32, Moses says, "Yet now, if you would only forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of the book that you've written."
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe there's
Oh,
multiple books, but I
Mhm.
think I think it's just a single book of life, and
Okay.
we could easily talk about it as if it's the Lamb's book of life, since he's the one who opens it and judges people by it, and he's the only
Right.
one given that authority.
Right. And just real quick, I want to make sure, from this, what we're reading here in Jubilees, that I clarified, it was blotted out of the book of the discipline of the children of men and not
Mhm.
recorded in the book of life. So it definitely gives us both there,
Mhm.
whether it's like a either or and it's definitely two things, whether it's all in the same book, we can debate that, but it's definitely like, hey, don't mess this up because we will take you out, and then you won't be written in the one that says, hey, you get the ticket in.
Yeah.
When you show up, and you're going to be left wanting.
That's the show enough important book over there. Yeah.
Yeah. My understanding is that the discipline of the children of men book is the one that is based off your rewards in heaven.
Yeah, every word indeed.
So are you great or are you least? Because you could still have a stillborn baby. They might be in the book of life, or I would say they're going to be in the book of life, but they have no discipline. They have no deeds recorded.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't move your umbilical cord enough to the one side. Marks for you. No, I think that the book of discipline is speaking about our behavior that's recorded, righteous or unrighteous, and then obviously those who have righteous deeds are recorded in the book of life.
Yeah,
and
if you have no discipline,
as Joe would say, they're not going to be judged in the same way as the wicked.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to get y'all's take on that. Again, if I'm good for anything, it's asking the odd questions. I want to ask questions too that someone else might come up with that's just out there. And I can see where somebody could speculate on that. So yeah, I appreciate y'all's input on that.
That was a fun little trail. Hey, so Joe, you were talking about as Isaac slept, you said he was dancing in the bed because he's happy on the way out. I wonder if in 19, when Esau, he says he left, like he went to another land. I wonder if he was like, I know, maybe if there's like this small inkling of like, just in case I decide to be dumb or mess up, let me leave. Let me like be on my own a little bit. That way, one, I have time to think about it, time to cool down, time to let myself get build up that discipleship that I need to be doing, the discipline that my dad was just telling me, don't be that guy. And like Joe was saying, he's cutting eyes at him the whole time, like, you gonna be blotted out, Mr. Not disciplined dude. So he's like, let me go off and away in order to like kind of have that quiet time. It's almost like, I know if I stay around here, it's going to be a problem. And I wonder if that's just some wisdom on his part, or just the father kind of prompting him, like, yeah, take a break, head out for a little bit, get some life underneath your belt, and see how it goes. I just wondering.
I know I keep bringing up Esau's sons, but I think it has to do with verses 12 through 19, where he talks about here comes the bequeathments to the firstborn, and then you see that it's given like it's as if Isaac turns to Esau, and as the firstborn, as the technical firstborn, and then Esau has to say, "Well, you can't give it to me, Dad. I sold to Jacob. Give him my birthright. Let it be given to him." And I have not said a single word to say regarding it, for it's his. So like this is the moment where he has to actually show the fortitude and honor that deal he made so long ago, even though he's hated Jacob this whole time. But it comes on the tail end of them having peace and being at one for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like there's a peaceful moment of transition as opposed to Game of Thrones suddenly happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what would have happened. Esau would have been like, "Oh heck no, that was, you tricked me." You know what I mean? Like he complained to Isaac and Rebecca earlier. He's deceived me twice now. So he's not claiming that game now. Now he's just like, no, give it to Jacob.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you think, Sean, that might have been a little bit of a test from Isaac to his son to kind of, because again, Isaac already knew.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel like this is a little bit of a test, because right after that, where it says, and Isaac said, may blessing rest, in verse 15, it says, and Isaac said, may blessing rest upon you, my sons, upon your seed this day, for ye have given me rest. It's almost like, okay, here comes the big, okay, we're gonna see where we're at with this. I done laid down this commandment to these boys, this covenant to them.
Yeah.
Okay, Esau, by the way, the blessing goes to the firstborn. He's like, yeah, Dad, but I sold it, and it's not mine. I think this is where Esau or Isaac himself is going, oh, cool.
They got it.
We're not going to have a big, argument. We're not going to have a he said thing here and what happened and how I was ripped off. And I think that part of Isaac resting started with that conversation and just got better as the conversation went to the point where Esau, or I keep saying Esau, I'm sorry. Isaac's like, I can die happy now.
Yep.
Because my two boys are now, they're at least seem to be on the same page and just, more together here.
So let's think practically about this. Why I said I don't mean to keep bringing up the sons, but I think there is an unspoken factor here that it plays into him leaving in verse 19.
Yep.
Which is the sons. They all know what normally happens in this situation. The grandfather dies. Their father and their uncle are going to get split up the inheritance. Yeah. They know that Esau's the firstborn. He should have gotten the lion's share of the inheritance.
We're going to be rich.
He should have gotten the tower, all that was about, all around about it, and all that Abraham possessed at the Well of Oath, whatever that was.
Right.
I don't know if this includes. I don't know what this includes, but apparently it seems to be a greater blessing, right? A greater inheritance given. So the boys, what are they going to say? Esau comes back with second place, knowing that he's the firstborn, technically. Yeah. What are the boys going to be like? Wait a minute. What? I mean, they bring up the same thing later. Right. So it makes me wonder if he took the initiative to be like, look, I know this isn't going to sit well with my clan. Mm-hmm. And like he says, I haven't said anything about it to this day regarding it. Or I have not said a single word to say regarding it, for it is his. So it's almost as if it makes me think, the way he's saying that to his father Isaac, that, yeah, you need to, I know you're looking at me, but you need to give it to Jacob. And, I haven't said anything regarding it that I've already. So basically, I feel like he's communicating. He hasn't told all of his people that he knew this day was coming.
Yeah, right? I would agree with
this
that.
This is why his sons are drastically confused. And they're like, wait a minute. No, we didn't agree to that. Yeah. We want that cool tower they're living in. We want whatever's at the Well of Oath. We want that stuff too. Like, no, we're going to go take that. This is yours, Dad.
And unfortunately too, Sean, what we talked about this, I think, when we were doing the recording this episode or chapter 37 was, you look at who Esau, like you see a change in Esau, but it's almost like too late, too little, too late.
He's already sprouted all these little hellions.
You've already raised your boys with the same and they're acting just like you.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. They're little wannabe alpha wolves as well.
Yeah, they're not like they just surprise. No, they're ruthless. They're probably hunters. They're gatherers. They're everything that you are. And unfortunately, I think you did have a righteous moment here with your father and your brother, but it's
too little, too late.
Here it comes, a little too late, man. Yeah,
you can't control baby as kids.
Right. It's so funny you say that. We just just brought them up in the last episode we did. I mean, how wicked do you have to be to threaten your dad with death?
Right.
Yeah, you've been for a long time. You've been living in a kill and eat culture.
Right.
Yeah.
So good stuff. I'm so glad y'all brought that up. The fact that, because that was something I had highlighted that in 14.
Yeah.
Where Esau owns up to it. Hey, I sold that. So y'all covered that extremely well. I don't think I need to say.
And it's interesting because his boys, now clearly they lose the battle that's going to happen next, but his boys stay in Edom at Mount Seir going forward.
Right.
So this is a significant moment because they could have moved back to near the tower and been a constant issue and a thorn in Jacob's side and his descendants' side. But I think after they got a little dose of Jacob's boys, they're like, yeah, we'll stay away. We'll stay away. We'll stay away.
Yeah. So, and if you guys are ready to move on, as we round out chapter 36, I just really I love the way this ends though. With when you see the ending, or I don't know if that's the right word, the ending part, but you get to see more of behind the scenes of Jacob and Leah.
Yeah.
And this is a lot more touching. This isn't the early on, like, I can't believe I woke up with you and I got this all, everything's messed up. Yeah. I love the fact that you're seeing this lovingness of Jacob towards Leah. It's beautiful. I'm glad that we have this part of the story here.
Yeah, it shows that he actually developed weak knees for her weak eyes.
Oh boy,
that's good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and does it ever say that he didn't like Leah? He just said he loved Rachel more. right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever get one where it's like, oh, and she was just horrible. He put her in the far corner of the field and never saw her again. He's like, no, he treated her like a wife. He gave her a house, gave her land, gave her inheritance, completed all his obligations. And if you guys know what I'm saying, everything went off with like it was supposed to in a normal marriage. It was just, yeah, but I came here for her. So like, as a man, as any human, we compare anything, right? If you get two equal items, you're still going to look at them like, what's different? It's the way our brains work. And we're always going to like one thing over the other, not because one's worse or one's better. It's just the way human beings work. And I think he just in his head was like, I came here for Rachel and that's who I wanted. And she was my favorite. So yeah, I loved her more, but it never says, and I didn't love Leah. It was just
Right.
like, this was just an unfortunate situation. Leah was thrown into it. She probably didn't want to be there. Jacob didn't even know, he didn't want her to be there. So then this is both of them waking up in the morning like, well, let's make the best of a bad situation. And like you guys were saying, you get to the end here and it's like, oh man, I didn't see all these characteristics and qualities that were actually should have rose to the top. I was so focused on Rachel's beauty, but lo and behold, this woman was amazing. And it took me too long to figure it out.
I think 23 is significant description of her character.
Yes, that's
perfect
where I
and
was
upright.
going, brother. Yeah.
All her ways, honor Jacob all the days she lived with him. Not a harsh word from her mouth. What did we see from Rachel? Give me children or I will die.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We saw Rachel stealing the idols, causing, just what happened to Rachel? She gets put under a tree. Leah gets the respected, famous double cave.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So to all the ladies, we love you out there. But it goes a long way with the man not to speak harshly to him. It goes a long way with the man. You can have the world if you learn how to speak gently at all times to your man.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you put him in a weird position where you challenge not just his ego, not just this modern idea of the ego being so evil, but you challenge his God-given status as the leader of the family if you speak harshly to him. And he doesn't want to feel that natural instinct to treat you like a man. So he wants to be able to be gentle and tender with you. And if you speak tenderly with him, you're going to get that tenderness back.
Yeah.
Naturally. He won't have to fight to be tender with you. It'll just
Right.
naturally flow.
That's right.
So this is where
Amen.
it's very important. I think Leah is a wonderful description of how Proverbs 31 woman should be.
There you go. Yeah, what I love about that too, Sean, is you go back to Proverbs and it says better to be on the top of the roof than dwell inside with a contentious woman.
Yeah.
So that, Kyle, if you could pull that up one more time, brother, that the very end of that chapter.
We can make a new proverb.
Yeah.
Better to be buried in a double cave than under a tree.
So make some T-shirts of that, and people go,
That's
what?
right.
What? That'd be a nice conversational piece.
Bridle your tongue so you get to the double cave.
That's it.
Yeah.
What I love in 23 is the fact, and it's going right back to what you're saying, Sean. He says he did not hear from her mouth a harsh word.
Yeah.
For she was gentle and peaceable and upright and honorable. And then when we finish that off, it's just as beautiful. It says, and he remembered all her deeds.
Yep.
So it wasn't like she was an afterthought. It wasn't like she was a pain. It wasn't like she was like, oh my God, I got to be married to you. And he's like, no, matter of fact, when we go back to 23, it says, for he loved her exceedingly after Rachel died. But again, when we finish this off and it says, and he remembered all her deeds, which she had done during her life, and he lamented her exceedingly. So this is like you're pouring out, man. It says, for he loved her with all his heart and with all his soul. What a beautiful ending to that story.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and she had all the children. She was fertile first and more often in her situation.
Yep.
And I know it can seem unfair to draw that correlation, but you walk in the ways of Yahweh with the right heart, Yahweh blesses you. It's just that simple.
Yep.
And look, we're not saying Rachel was a bad person. We're just saying everyone's on a different discipleship path. And Leah seemed to. Now, sometimes they say that this is part and parcel for firstborn children, is that they want to be more pleasing to authority figures, and the secondborn are more rebellious. And between me and my brother, I can attest to that trope is true. But my brother far exceeds me in all of his accomplishments, if I could put it like that, and his making my parents happy longer and a lot earlier than I ever did. So, yeah, he's better at it. But it seems as if Leah was really, she kind of figured it out. I don't know who was a good example, because it seems like Laban was a scoundrel. So she maybe just read the words of the Lord that Jacob had in his possession and took them to heart.
Yeah, maybe she did submit under his authority fully. Yeah. I'm so glad y'all were bringing this up, because I mean I'm reading into this a little bit more, a little bit of something else, and I think Jonathan kind of mentioned it a second ago about in it wasn't the ideal situation, but the best was made out of the situation, right? And I think the Father works that way a lot of times in our lives, right? Like there's things that play into our lives, and the Father takes what was meant for evil or meant for deception or meant for whatever, and he uses it for his purpose, right? And our job is just to remain righteous in all of it. Well, something that's been a big topic, and has been quite divisive lately, is the subject of one woman for one man, the marriage thing. And of course, all the patriarchs get brought up. Well, how do you explain this? And da 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 da. Well, in all of those situations, it wasn't really what they wanted. It was something that they were either duped into, or whatever. Like there's always something there, except for when we know of like Solomon or David like making bad decisions that we know were bad decisions, right? So we don't have really examples of these patriarch figures going and doing this specifically because it's something that Yah said, okay, yeah, you can go and do this, whatever.
Why didn't Abraham and Jacob add many more wives throughout their life?
Right.
When Sarah or Rachel dies, why didn't he add more wives? No, he just focused on Leah.
I mean, Noah, good gracious. His son's got women. Why couldn't he go grab one to bring on the boat so they can populate the earth again? I don't
we
know.
talk about a pickup line, all pun intended. Yeah, you want to live?
I got a yacht.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you want to live, come with me. Get to the Noah's Ark.
Get to the boat now.
Get to the Ark now.
All right. So
no, not the guys. It's all the pretty women now. Come on now.
You like animals? We got plenty of them.
Yeah. We got puppies. We got monkeys.
I wouldn't be with you for the last man on earth. Well, I might be.
Watch your words.
Okay. So 23 and 24. I think it's neat to point this out. It says, "For he loved her exceedingly after Rachel, her sister, died."
Yeah.
Where she was perfect. So one, we have an after. She was loved exceedingly after. She was loved before, but she was loved exceedingly after. All right. And then it goes through all the good stuff about her and all that kind of good stuff, right? And then it says, and then he lamented her exceedingly. And it says, for he loved her with all his heart and all his soul. And to anyone questioning the one, whether they should have multiple wives or one wife only, I always go back to husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. You got to be willing to die for them, right? And that's an all the time kind of thing. It's not just the wives submit to your husbands. It's the other part too. You got to remember about. And what I see here is, his heart is having to be spread out. He's not able to fully love one woman. And then we see an example here where he is able to love her exceedingly with all of his heart and all of his soul. Now, I guess my question for those who are wanting multiple wives would be, is your first wife undeserving of that? Is your wife undeserving of being loved exceedingly? Is she undeserving of being loved with all of your heart and all of your soul? And if that's the case, then hey, go get plenty of them. I personally, and forgive me, I don't know exactly where all your views are on this, Sean, but I mean, I take a pretty hard stance on this. That's where I'm at. I don't think it's possible for someone to really, truly, fully love with all their heart and with all their soul if they have more than one. I think that's the very reason why Yah says, "You shall have no other gods before me."
But I agree. That's why he gave one wife to Adam.
And I mean,
Right.
if you were to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, how can you do that if you have other gods?
Right.
You can't. I think he is the perfect example. Our relationship with him is the perfect example as to how we are to be with others. So anyway, that's my hard stance on that. So
Yeah, we definitely teach it against the multiple wives, and think it's a prescription for disaster. We don't think it was. There's no example of it being an easy road, and there's no example of it being prescribed. It's just as a backup in case your brother dies and his wife has no children, and so that's when you should legally take on a second wife. Obviously, with the examples of Abraham and Jacob, these are circumstances where they did not want this, but yet God did allow it and blessed everybody in the midst of it.
mhm.
But I think that Rachel, like, Genesis 30 says that Rachel envied Leah because of the birthing situation. And I think that it became very clear that's why he couldn't love Leah exceedingly. I mean, he's distracted. They got the rivalry between the sisters happening. That's a huge distraction. He can't please, he's never making anyone happy ever.
Yeah.
He can't make anyone, he can make Leah happy, Rachel's mad. Make Rachel, he can't make any one of them ever happy.
Give me some love apples, man. What's up?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, talk about being in a no-win situation for many, many years, to where you got these rivalry between these two sisters, and then of course,
Plus Laban.
Well, and then what
Yeah.
does it create with the sons? Eventually, with
Right.
Joseph and his brothers,
they have their own animosity between each other. Knowing they have
Yeah.
different mothers, and they probably haven't heard their mothers speak good of each other ever.
Right.
So there's a lot of problems here.
Yeah, I like to think that I coined this phrase a while back, but I call it the birthing wars.
Yeah.
So it's, poor Jacob's like you just said, I can't make anybody happy, man. I don't know. And then when Rachel's berating him, he's like, "Am I God? Am I Yahweh? This isn't. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do."
Gosh,
Okay, he's the one
sacred
that
mind.
opens the womb. I'm not Yahweh, so get off my back. That's how I read it. Like, if I was being married now 30 years, he's like, "Hey, get off my back, man." It's like, I'm not God. I can't make this happen. You know.
As someone that has to make thumbnails for videos, my brain just immediately went to two pregnant ladies like swinging kids on umbilical cords like nunchucks, just fighting. Birthing wars.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's like Old West music, na-na-na, with a little baby crying at the end. Birthing wars. Sorry.
No,
Yeah, I can't ever. Majority of my content, I can't. It's so hard for me to infuse any humor into it. So, I just have to keep it stale.
Context is not stale.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I have so many jokes. Someday, if things go well in the future, I pitched this to Ken Heidelberg a long time ago. I was like, bro, we need to do MXC style. We need to do the Battles of Israel MXC style. So, like, you guys ever see MXC, Most Extreme Challenge? The Japanese game show where they they make all the jokes where they're running through the obstacles.
Yeah.
I was like, you and me, Ken, will be the announcers, and we'll just be riffing jokes constantly as we talk about the battle of Israelites versus the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Midianites, everything about, like, just it'd be hilarious. It'd be hilarious, absolutely hilarious, and it'd be a teaching thing at the same time. But like, we're just constantly making jokes. But unfortunately, I don't feel like there'd be too many religious-minded folks that wouldn't think it would be funny.
That's sacrilegious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I've said this plenty of times, but if Peter Jackson ever got a hold of the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and the Bible, and someone sat down with him and say, "By the way, this would make Lord of the Rings look like a kiddie story, but this is like, in the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, when Judah's talking about his battles and he's got a shield and boulders are hitting him and he's throwing ox through the air with one. I mean, it's just like, okay."
Yeah, you think The Chosen is lucrative and productive. Yeah, I mean, like maybe not lucrative, but you think The Chosen's successful in ratings.
Right.
If Peter Jackson made these stories, oh my gosh,
It'd be unreal.
So we covered a lot of stuff today, and it started off with Joseph being out of the picture, right? Jacob thinks he's dead. He said he's perished, and we see the institution of the Day of Atonement. Like that's kind of out of this world a little bit. That's a biblical feast we've been keeping and understanding, and here we get the origins of it and the purpose behind it, and some of the actions that are happening. We see the wives, we see the children, we see Rebecca's last words. Like Joe and I and Kyle, we've given her like the 3 thumbs up for her ability to walk the life out and do everything that she was supposed to do, and kind of keep that balance between literally polar opposite children. We've all either have children or been around children. When they're polar opposite, it's hard to corral that situation, and she did so with grace and love, and still kept dad in check, and was like, hey, by the way, before I die, you handle these kids. And what does he do? He makes them swear a great oath. He says, you guys get together. And they had one good moment. Rebecca had a good moment with the kids on the way out. Isaac had a good moment with the kids on the way out. And for a moment there, they were kind of on the same page. And, we know in Romans 8:28, it says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And all these people in these scenarios were called for a purpose. I mean, we're called for a purpose, and all things work together for good. And so Leah, we close out with her story, and it's always kind of a sad story at the origin. Random girl meets random dude on their wedding night, unbeknownst to each other. Oops, we woke up in the morning, now we're married. How did that happen? But yet it says all things work together for good. So then we see now the back end of the story, and he's literally bawling his eyes out because she's passing on, because he recognized what a good thing he had. And whether it was all bad, whether it was all crazy, and the love apples, the mandrakes, and then the 2, handmaids, all the stuff that comes out and all the stuff that comes to play here. He said, this was a good thing. And I have to thank the Father for what I have and who I've become and the wife that he's given me. And it took a while for me to see it. I didn't quite get the fullness of the story because there's a lot going on. But when it's just me and her, wow, she never said a bad thing, never had a bad word. And then, like I said, it's really ultimately God's going to work all things together for good. And at the end of all these stories, even with Jacob and Esau, the good still came of it. We still get the 12 tribes. We still get to hear the story. Jacob survived the battle, right? He doesn't die from Esau. All good comes out of it. And that's what I think is the biggest takeaway, is just looking so much at all these verses. These aren't doom and gloom. These are victory, and we go from glory to glory. So we know this story carries on all the way through the scriptural narrative, all the way through Revelation, until we get to the New Jerusalem, which then all things will be good.
Amen. Now, next time we've got Esau and his boys and Jacob and his boys going at it. There's going to be war.
We're having a redneck throwdown.
Things are going to happen. We're not going to give you the spoiler just yet, but stuff's going to happen. Then we got Joseph coming up with Potiphar's wife and dreams being interpreted and all kind of cool stuff. And that's coming up next time, where our brother Sean will be joining us once again. Sean, thank you so much for joining us, brother. We always
appreciate you.
Always love having you on, man. So with that, guys, we will see you next time for part 3 of the breakdown with Sean and Jubilees. God bless.
Shalom.